Robert, we're a go. Good luck. Have fun, guys.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the movie Battleground. I am your host for today, Robert Parker, and we have a hell of a match set up for you guys today. This is going to be an amazing one. We have a triple threat for playing for a #1 contender spot. This is going to be an amazing match. I cannot wait to see how this one folds out. We have 3 amazing competitors here. I'm going to go to each of them individually, see how they're feeling for the match. Just because it's in the order of my screen, we'll go to Chance first. Chance, how you feeling about today?
It's a weird thing. Like I feel antsy. I don't know why. I've never been this anxious going into a Battleground match, but I'm ready. I know both these. Well, I know one of these guys very well. The other guy I'm just meeting actually, but I had a huge hill to climb named Henry Sanchez, and I beat him. So I'm ready for these guys.
Alrighty, Chance, confident and anxious. That might be a good sign or a bad one. Isaac, how you feeling, man?
I'm excited for my first 3-way. I got to be honest.
Oh,
wait, that's not the
that.
Wait,
Oversharing.
Wrong spot. Dang it. All right, no. I'm very excited to get into this. Had less prep time than usual, and I'm ready to go. All my picks were my first option, so that's the first time I think that has happened for me. So I'm very excited to get this fight going. I'm ready to bounce back from that loss, and it's nice to have a new competitor and a rematch with Jeremy, a chance to redeem myself.
Alrighty, yes indeed. Isaac looking for a little bit of redemption going into here. And Isaac, you already spoiled it, but our match, our third competitor here is Jeremy, the Adam Adams. Jeremy, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling okay. I, actually had retired in my last match, so everyone might be thinking, what the hell is he doing here? Well, the guys here at Movie Battleground kind of got to me. They enticed me with promises of glory and title shots, and, there may have been some money exchange. So I figured, hey, why not? I'll come back one more time, give it the old college try, one more go around. But, honestly, every match that I've played has been like kind of life or death. Like I was trying to get to that title. I was trying to get to that championship, and I was just fighting, and I was so nervous. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do one more last, try here, and I'm not going to take it so seriously. I'm going to be here to have fun. I'm going to fight 2 guys that I respect so much. Isaac, I honestly think I had my best match of all with him because he's a great competitor, and Chance, who I've yet to face, who's a good friend and somebody that I respect so much. So I'm here to have fun, and it's a 3-way, so it'll be interesting.
Alrighty, Jeremy, really respectful, obviously, going for his last run here. And, he spoke of money exchanging. I promise that nothing exchanged hands physically. It was all wired through foreign accounts. With that,
you got paid.
With that being said, we are going to hop into the rules real quick, just to remind our competitors and those watching at home, because the 3-way rules are a little bit interesting. So we have 3 competitors, obviously. The main structure of the match will be the same. We have each individual main round questions. Each competitor is going to get an opening argument. There will be an open forum period where everybody can yell at each other, and then there will be closing arguments for each of the 3 individual players. The open forum argument will last 5 minutes, so I will try to keep track of that on my clock. Other than that, each player does have an extension rule that they can use before the question is announced. They will have a one-minute extension per match, so you can just let me know and you can use your extension to make the open forum period of yelling even longer, because that's exactly what we want. Other than that, as soon as one player hits 2 points, they move on to the final question. There is no speed round in the 3-way matches, so once 2 players each hit 2 points, they will move on to the final question, which will be for all of the marbles and, maybe some of Jeremy's foreign money too. So, what am I missing? I'm missing something. Oh yeah, how I am judging. So I will be judging these matches, this debate. I'm judging based on the strength of the debate, not just the strength of the choice. So it's not just about how good you can support your own argument. It's also about your facts, creativity, and passion about taking down the other people's arguments. I have my giant notebook paper, and I will be hurting my hand writing very quickly in this match. Anybody have any questions before we get going?
No.
I'm taking that silence as a no. So we're going to hop right into it with round 1, question 1. Let's do it. Question 1. What is the best gangster film?
Sorry, I have a call. Pause for a second. One more thing. And let me pull up the stats real fast just to make sure I have this correct. But
Oh, sure.
I know one of the hosts missed this at one point, so one of you may or may not know this, but what we're doing now is the person who is statistically ranked highest gets to pick what questions they go first on, because there's 3 of you and there are 6 questions, even if we don't play the last one. Jeremy, you are statistically ranked the highest of the 3, so what 2 questions did you want to go first on?
I'm sorry, was that me you cut out?
Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy is the
highest.
highest.
I thought it was me. I'm going to go first on number 1.
Okay.
And I'm going to go first on number 3.
All right.
Okay. 1 and 3, and then Isaac, you're second, so out of the questions left, what 2 do you want to go first on?
I'll go first on number 2. And number 4.
Okay, which means Chance, you'll go
5 and 6.
First on 5 and 6. Basically, yeah.
All right.
To be fair, though, the 3 of you are second, third, and fourth. So it's by hairs that you're separated on the ranks.
Exactly.
So I'll just, once we actually start, I'll just say,
so
all right, the competitors have picked which questions they want to go first on. So we're going to start with question 1, blah, blah, blah. Jeremy, you're up first. We'll just do that.
Right. And what here, I'll make this call just because there's 3 of it. What we'll do, just to be fair, always have Chance go second on the first 4. So the first question will be Jeremy, Chance, Isaac.
Okay.
And do that for the first 4 questions, and then if we get to the last 2 and Chance is still playing, rotate them in and out.
Totally fair. We'll do that.
All right, cool.
All right. So I'll just give it 2 seconds, then I'll hop back into it.
I'll tell you once I'll say I'm muting, and then give it a second, and we'll go back into it. All right, I'm gonna mute myself now.
All right, all the competitors have picked which number of questions they want to go first on. Obviously, that's determined by ranking, and these guys are just barely ahead of one another, so this is going to be a great match. Question 1, what is the best gangster film? Jeremy, we are coming to you first.
All right, well, the gangster genre is something that was established back in the 1930s and 40s, really, in American cinema. We all have an idea of what those gangster movies were, the hard-boiled, you dirty rats, old, Hollywood type of films. And that kind of gangster movies kind of continued that way in Hollywood cinema, throughout classic Hollywood. There were some European directors that had kind of had new takes on it. But wasn't until 1972, and a man named Francis Ford Coppola decided to take a popular novel called The Godfather by Mario Puzo and make it into a film that the gangster genre as we know it today was really established. This movie really was the gangster movie. This was the movie that showed how you could tell a story that was realistic yet larger than life and mythic, that had memorable characters that you related to. They weren't just the bad guys, but they were really multi-layered characters. And this story about Vito Corleone, his son Michael, everything that happens throughout with this family from the 1940s on is just such an epic story. And it is ranked one of the greatest American films ever made for a reason, because it is fascinating, interesting, has the highest level of acting you can ever see, and is just a perfect story. It comes from the novel. So they were doing an adaptation, and they had a perfect story to work with. Beginning, middle, and end. It flows so perfectly. And this movie, the artistry of it, the cinematography, the darkness of it, that was just something unprecedented that people hadn't really seen before, how dark the scenes were, but it mirrors the story so well. It mirrors the ambiguity of it all. The opening shot where we're introduced to Marlon Brando, we don't see him. Where somebody is talking to him, and then eventually he talks and he comes out of the darkness. It's so iconic. And his Oscar-winning performance as Vito Corleone really is the defining gangster character to me. Only second is Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino, whose arc from the good son, the son who was supposed to be, you know, a politician, a businessman. He wasn't supposed to be a criminal. He was supposed to be the one that stood apart, but he gets pulled in, and he becomes not only the successor, but like the most competent, the greatest gangster, the greatest criminal anyone had ever seen, you know, beating every other criminal in the city with his intelligence. Is such an incredible arc. And in this film, we see Michael Corleone lose his soul in a way that is so interesting and so complete. And even though there were sequels, in this film we have it all. It is such a great story, and the movie itself, so many years later, is still as thrilling, as perfect. It flows so perfectly, and it is still as memorable and shocking as it ever was. There is nothing that beats The Godfather.
All right, Jeremy coming out of the gate swinging. We are going to second. Chance, whenever you're ready for your brief opening argument.
Funny that you bring up the Godfather, because I do have one that I think tops that in its own in its own continuity, and that is The Godfather Part 2. The Godfather Part 2. When this was first, I imagine I wasn't around in '74, so I can't vouch for it. But I imagine when this was announced, people had a reaction like, "What? The first Godfather was amazing. Why are you going back and trying to do something else? That doesn't make any sense." But then it came out. And people were like, not only did they like it, they were blown away by it. They were blown away by the fact that it was a sequel and a prequel. You get two narratives that are balanced very well. You get more in depth into some of these characters. It's a much denser story. It's a much more compelling story. And I think when you're looking at the best gangster movies, it has to be The Godfather's great, but I think The Godfather 2 definitely does it better.
Alrighty, and Chance, I can attest, I do remember 1972 fondly, and people were saying that back then.
I do remember 1973 when they're about to open forums at the library saying like, how dare they make a sequel to Godfather 2? Godfather.
Yeah, definitely. Alrighty, and last but of course not least, Isaac, for your opening argument.
All right, well, Jeremy kind of brought up, kind of accidentally, the type of movie that I was going for. It's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of gangster films. Gangster films is my favorite genre of movies of all time, and my favorite actor of all time is James Cagney. And I chose one of his classic movies, Angels with Dirty Faces, is the best gangster movie of all time. Angels with Dirty Faces tells the story of Rocky Sullivan, who him and his childhood friend, Jerry Connolly, are kind of ruffians in this neighborhood, and one day they commit a crime and they're running away from it, and Rocky helps Jerry over the fence and he gets caught because of it. And that decision impacts the movie the rest of the way forward, and it tells about how Jerry went on to be an upstanding member of society, became a priest. Rocky, because he got caught, went to prison, became institutionalized, came out as a hardened criminal, and was a gangster the rest of his life. And it tells this story of him. Once he gets out of prison years later, he takes a fall for Humphrey Bogart's character, Jim Frazier. And the deal is he'll get out and get the money back from the bank robbery that he took the fall for. And he gets out and he meets up with his old friend in the old neighborhood. He runs into a group of kids that are old ruffians. And the movie progresses of a story of these two men fighting for the souls of these children, kind of. They look up to Rocky as the ruffian that they want to be. And they look at Jerry Connolly as this like stuffed goody two-shoes that isn't cool. And it's the battle for these, and the movie will plays out, and eventually the movie leaves you with this sense of, did Rocky redeem himself by becoming a coward to save these kids, or was he actually the coward that everybody think that he was? Or was he really the bravest of them all by choosing to go to the electric chair, crying and weeping? It's a powerful movie. Those other two movies, Godfather, Godfather 2, more iconic, more memorable. But if you're talking about movies that affect me personally and I think are more accessible, it's Angels with Dirty Faces all the way.
All right. So, side note, when I initially wrote down Isaac's pick, I wrote down Angles with Dirty Faces. that just was, I flipped around that G and that E, and that makes a difference.
Wait a minute.
Or the E and the L, rather. All right, so we're going to go into open forum period. There's going to be 5 minutes to yell and scream and shout and let it all out. I'm about to put 5 minutes on the clock. I'll give you about a 30-second warning when there's about 30 seconds left. First person to start talking, that starts my time. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, first I just want to say Angels with 30 faces. I started, Chance. I win. I started first. Okay, Angels with 30 Faces. The thing that I was hinting at before with the older gangster movies is they were under the Hollywood production code. So the Hollywood production code.
It wasn't. It was pre-code. Pre-code.
No, it's 38. 1938 post-code. Post-code. The code started in 1934. So in 1938, films under the production code were dictated. The morality of how the movies had to go. So if you have a criminal like James Cagney, he either has to change his ways completely, or he has to have a comeuppance. And of course, you mentioned at the end, he goes the electric chair. And there was this tight sort of morality in all those films, and I think that limited them a little bit, as opposed to The Godfather, where we were out of that production code and we could start to tell really a more honest story, and the studio wasn't hamstringing us. And the other thing I want to mention is James Cagney gave his greatest performance as a gangster in City Heat, which was, I'm sorry, not City Heat.
City Heat's way better than this movie.
Yeah, which was I'm sorry, I got the title wrong. City Street. It's White Heat. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So White Heat was later on. That is the definitive James Cagney gangster movie. Top of the world mob. He is so fantastic in that movie. The art that he has.
White Heat's way better than this.
See, there's more psychology in his character because of his relationship with his mother and everything that he goes through. It is the iconic James Cagney film, and if you'd picked that would have been a little tougher. But Angel with 30 Faces is older. It's a little more mired in its time, and it doesn't quite do what City Heat would do.
There's no layers to Cody Garrett in White Heat. There's no layers to him. There's no depth to him. He just plays insane. He plays the Joker. He just goes insane. That's why. This character has layers.
It tells you why he's insane. And why somebody, is driven to do these terrible things. It gives you more, and his performance is so unique in giving that kind of psychotic character, but making you fascinated and interested in him in the same way. Now I just got to go to Godfather Part 2. Now, Godfather Part 2, it's uneven because it's telling two different stories in two different time periods. Agreed. So you're going back and forth, and it doesn't have the momentum that Godfather 1 has. And the other issue with it is, it's just in the first movie we see Michael lose his soul. In the second movie we see Michael lose his soul more. So it isn't as compelling because we've already got that story.
Oh no!
And now
I take issue with that kind of thinking because he does lose his soul more because you see.
Yeah, but
it's not as interesting. Like the first one is him going in that world of crime. The second one is him falling.
No, okay, how far are you falling further? I mean, seeing this golden boy go from the golden boy of the family to being the greatest criminal with the darkest. I mean, he's a darker character than his dad. His dad, though a criminal, had morals. And at the end of the first film, Michael doesn't. And that is more interesting than what happens to him too, which is just he's going deeper down the road.
I don't think so because you also see a lot of parallels between. That's why they had the balance in there. You get to see a lot of parallels between. Young Vito Corleone, Michael Corleone, who Robert De Niro Corleone than Marlon Brando, who like many of his movies is doing that role in his fucking sleep. But I do want to talk about it real quick. Looking at your opening argument, you kind of made my argument for me. Like it's it's not as memorable as the first two Godfathers, not iconic as the first two Godfathers. So at that point, you're losing the fight.
It doesn't. It's not about what's more iconic. It's about what's better.
Look,
my movie isn't well known.
Even then, you never said it's a better movie. You said it's more appeling to you personally.
Yeah, Isaac, just because
wider appeal. I said it has wider appeal. And
Isaac, just because
the movie is half of one of the greatest movies ever made. No, Godfather Part 2 is half of one of the greatest movies ever made. I only remember the Don Corleone part of the story. I don't remember anything with Michael except You Broke My Heart.
Who the hell's Don Corleone?
Vito, whatever.
Who the hell's Don Corleone?
You know who I'm talking about. Vito.
Yeah, Vito. Okay, yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah, all I can remember from the other side is You Broke My Heart, Frito. I don't remember anything else about that story. The first one does not hold up as well.
No one remembers your movie at all.
That doesn't make it not as good. My movie is still better. It seems that it exists.
Isaac, your movie has 1930s over-the-top acting. You think that The Godfather doesn't hold up as well? as that. The
Yeah,
Godfather.
I want to hit Godfather 1. I want to hit Godfather 1 a little bit more, just because we have 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as compelling. We don't see the parallels between. We don't see as much of the parallel between Vito and Michael. And Michael, like you say, mine but also two narratives. How much time does Michael spend hiding in Italy or wherever the hell he is for most of that movie, while the interesting stuff is going on back home in America? And plus, you got the scene, something that I think is the biggest crime of that movie, the death of Luca Brasi.
And time there. Alrighty, that flies by.
That does fly by. Goddamn.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just jotting down those last notes. All right, so we're going to go closing arguments in the same order as opening arguments. Jeremy, when you are ready for closing argument.
Look, The Godfather, it is a story that has a beginning, middle, and an end, as I said in the beginning, and you watch that movie and you're just fascinated from the very beginning. And I think the arc of it is really perfect, despite what Chance might say about, there's better parallels in the second movie. Well, the first movie, it does have great parallels because we're seeing, everybody looks up to Vito's character at the beginning of the film. And by the way, Marlon Brando is great. I mean, that iconic performance.
I never said that. I never said he wasn't great.
Yeah, his career was over, and no one even wanted to cast him, and he just changed everything with that performance. Every choice that he made in that role is so iconic, and I think there would be Robert De Niro is trying to live up to that, and he's given a little more of a naturalistic performance, but he isn't on the iconic, powerful, guttural level of what Marlon Brando brings. And at the same time, you understand this is a person with a heart. This is somebody who's made choices. He's had to live with those choices, but everything that he did, for the sake of the love of his family and of his community. And you get that in that movie. Whereas with Pacino, every choice that Michael's character makes is motivated by, okay, I'm put in this situation and I have to do this. And the Italians, the scenes in Italy are very important because that's him like, okay, I'm just going to try to live a life. I'm going to try to be a husband. I'm going to try to live in Italy. That's his second attempt to get away from the family. And again, he's pulled in this horrific sequence where his new bride is killed. He keeps getting pulled back into the family. And every time he's pulled in, he makes choices that are motivated by the moment, but they're not motivated by, the love of his family in the same way that they are with his father. They're motivated by his intelligence and just trying to act in the moment. And every choice that he makes is, really the right choice in terms of the Corleone family coming out on top, but they're also the bad choices because every choice that he makes corrupts his soul. And that to me is the gangster movie. That is what the gangster movie can be. It's not hamstrung by a code saying, oh, he's got to die at the end, or this has to happen, or that has to happen. It's the story of somebody, if they're going to be the best, if they're going to be on top, whether it's in the criminal world or in the corporate world or whatever it is, they've got to give up something. And Vito, he could have given it up because they went to him and said, hey, come with us on our drug empire, heroin empire. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that because I think drugs and heroin are wrong. And he almost died because of that. And they lost a lot because of that choice. Michael is smarter. He makes the wiser choices and those corrupt him. And that arc is strong. That parallel is strong. The second movie only shadows that. And that strong story from beginning to end pulls you along further than the parallel story, which is a little harder to get into and doesn't work as well. The Godfather is the gangster movie and nothing beats it.
All right, definitely an impassioned and strong argument from Jeremy there. Chance, we're going to you for your closing.
Sorry. Okay, so The Godfather, I'm not denying The Godfather is a great film, but Marlon Brando played most of his career in sleep. Marlon Brando was talented enough he could play most of his career in his sleep, which kind of made his performance less. I think it made it less engaging, at least. I think it made it less engaging. And as far as angels with dirty faces, I almost said angels with filthy souls. You see, I'm more ingrained to say the title of a fake movie from Home Alone than I am to say the title of your movie. No one's talking about it. No one remembers it. You even said it yourself. It's not as memorable as either of these two movies. So at that point, you're already saying you lost the fight. The Godfather 2. Look, The Godfather, like I said, The Godfather 1 is a great movie. The Godfather 2 takes what The Godfather gives and it elevates that. Pacino in this movie, Robert Duvall more interesting in this movie. Robert De Niro, I profess, is a far better Vito Corleone than Marlon Brando, just because you see more accurately the parallels between the two. You see, like, it tackles, I think something this movie does a whole lot better than your movie is the fact that it tackles the morality of someone who would go into a life like this. It tackles, like, this tackles, like, the first Godfather tackled the how, this one tackles the why, and also tackles the how far. And especially, like, you're right, the first one did at the beginning, middle, and this one had the further. It took it further. Like, okay, you know what? There's more to this life than what we showed you in the first one. We can take that further. We can give you a deeper story. We can give you a even darker story, and we can give you a deeper story. We can give you a darker story, and we can go in and prove to you why it's important to look at the side of crime, because, like Jeremy was right, this was a side of society that wasn't really shed a good light on until this era. And I feel like the reasons, the morality, and the consequences that would put you into a position like this are tackled far more accurately in The Godfather Part 2.
Alrighty, and Isaac, for your closing.
I did not say more memorable, I said more iconic. People might know Infinity War better than they know Taxi Driver. That doesn't make it a better movie. My movie is older. That's why it's less iconic. That's why it's less remembered. It doesn't speak to the quality of it. The first Godfather does not hold up as well. It's slower than you remember. That wedding scene goes on for 3 hours. Sonny's miscast. Italy, the whole scene, that whole sequence in the movie is distracting. Doesn't add much to the movie. The second Godfather is half a movie, or it's half a great movie and half a movie that I forget. I don't remember anything, like I said, about all of the stuff with Michael. I only remember that line with Frito and the shot on the lake. The father story in that with Robert De Niro, that's the story that I remember. It's only half as good. My movie was nominated for 3 Oscars, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Slant called it the best Warner Brothers gangster film. You said you remember the movie from Home Alone. Exactly. My movie inspired other parodies and stuff. It still is in the consciousness, even though people don't realize it. Here's the difference between my movie and your movie. You say that your movies are better because they're darker and they take the subject matter seriously, and they give them characters that do bad things, right? And you talk about the code hampering my movie. Some of the greatest movies ever made were made during the code. It doesn't hamper things. It made them more creative. My movie is still of these characters murdering and killing and doing bad things. It's still in there. The only difference you have a problem with is that my character has a comeuppance. The interesting thing is maybe my character doesn't have a comeuppance. You talk about my acting being over the top. The final scene with Cagney is still debated. It's still debated as to whether he was being a coward or whether he was trying to save those kids. My movie has characters that you can root for. It has a wider audience appeal. It has a possible redemption that makes it a better, like a more watchable movie. Your movies are more dark. They are more direct pressing. It makes them less watchable. They're just bad guys doing bad things, worse and worse. That's not interesting to me. My movie is actually a complete movie. It has a character arc and it has interesting things happening in it. And just because my character might have redemption at the end doesn't make it a worse movie.
Alrighty, Isaac with a good closing there. I'm just taking a quick second to look over. All right, so as expected, when you put 3 of the best players in the league together, this makes my job difficult. So here's where I stand. All of you are obviously good at this game. All of you had good closings and good openings. I heard a lot against Isaac early on in the open forum, but I think he countered that well in his closing. I heard a lot against Chance in the open forum, and in Jeremy's closing as well. I think I'm leaning a little bit towards giving the point to Jeremy on this one. Isaac did have some good attacks of him. Isaac, in your opening, you had some good attacks of Jeremy, but I needed that. He couldn't contest them, so I needed them a little bit earlier in the match, and then it would have been a little bit more even. But I think Jeremy Jeremy didn't. There was barely a sentence against Godfather in the open forum, and I think that's what took it for Jeremy. So I'm gonna give the first point to Godfather.
That's fair.
I can go to bed now. I'm happy.
All right, good night, Jeremy. So 1v1, Isaac versus Chance.
I knew that was an uphill battle.
Yeah.
I was betting hard you were gonna take Goodfellas.
I wanted somebody to take Goodfellas so badly.
I was ready to fight that one.
I hate Goodfellas.
Really?
Yeah, I don't love Goodfellas as much as some. So
I love
anyway,
it's great. It's great, but
now that you all are hating on one of the best movies ever made,
I'm gonna lose this match now, aren't I?
Lots of dislikes now on this video. So
I love Goodfellas. So give me the points.
All right,
it's a very good film. I'm sorry, Robert.
No, you don't have to kiss my ass. It's fine. Let's go into question 2. Let me just find it here quick. So, our second question today. This is an interesting one. A question that I personally hold near and dear to my heart. All right, question 2.
I wonder why.
What is the best film trilogy? The best trilogy of all time in film. Isaac, we are coming to you first.
I forgot. The best trilogy of all time. It's funny. As soon as I heard this question, I knew exactly what I was going to answer, and this is the one that I thought I would have to fight for. That's why I replied really quick with this. Because it's the obvious choice. It's the one that comes to your mind right away. In my mind, like, there's no other answer. It's Lord of the Rings.
Kiss ass.
Robert was dancing. Big shock. That's what you picked.
Just give him the point so we can move on.
For the record, I did not know that Robert was such a big Lord of the Rings fan.
I just have to cut in before the fight continues. Robert, I flipped the camera to you. We have that on camera.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
It's always good to see Robert dancing.
We got to gift that. We got to make that a gift.
That's a gift.
Okay, continue.
Lord of the Rings, just the reason Robert was dancing joyfully there is because it's the most obvious answer. It's the right answer. There is no other trilogy that is as good all the way through as Lord of the Rings.
Alrighty. All right, an interesting pick from Isaac there. Let's Jeremy, or no, sorry, excuse me, Chance. We're coming to you second. Chance for your opening argument.
I don't know why I'm fighting this. I mean, you're obviously gonna pick Lord of the Rings, but I'm gonna fight anyways because my pick for this question is one that people might not expect coming from me because they know I'm a fan of a certain other trilogy. But I think as far as best trilogy of all time, I think there is actually one correct answer. And I see Robert shaking his head. Sorry, no, I lost this fight. And that is, of course, Toy Story. Yes, I'm being 100% honest and genuine. Toy Story is the best movie trilogy. Toy Story, look, the first one came out in '95. It was so just ahead of the time. And it was an interesting thing because Toy Story 2 was actually supposed to be released straight to DVD, but they put that in theaters anyways, and it was received just as well. And then you fast forward 11 years later to the release of Toy Story 3, which also received just like slightly, just like a midge under slight as well. I think as far as critical acclaim, as far as cultural impact, I think Toy Story has had one of the biggest impacts on film as much as any trilogy has. And I think that quality-wise, I think you can't debate Toy Story is the best trilogy. So my answer is Toy Story.
Alrighty, and I'm just getting ahead of the comments now. I, as a judge, I am completely unbiased here. I think it's very clear what my personal favorite is, but I am judging based on the quality of the debate, not on the choice itself. I just want to put that out there for people who are going to say that I hate Chance. I mean, it's true, but like I'm not going to say that on
It's
camera.
true, but I want to make sure you're not biased against me.
Exactly, right? All right, Jeremy, when you're ready for your opening.
All right, though this is totally rigged, I will continue. Just kidding. I had to. All right. There's only one answer, guys. Come on. What created the trilogy in cinema history? What made that a thing? What is still the biggest freaking franchise today? What changed?
Star Trek.
Jaws?
Yeah, right. What changed cinema forever? What changed popular cinema, sci-fi, adventure, geek? What made it all in cinema Star Wars. Come on, it's Star Wars. The original Star Wars trilogy, the first film from 1977, Empire Strikes Back in 80, Return of the Jedi in 83. This was an original story, based on, a mythic storytelling of the past, serial films from the 40s, but it was new characters, a unique take, a huge gamble for a young filmmaker named George Lucas trying to do this in the 70s, trying to do this positive, upbeat, fantastical sort of story in cynical times where the big movies were dramas, a lot of depressing films. That's what was really big in the 70s. We'd had Jaws, which kind of, started to turn the tide to get more popular cinema. But to do this, to make this space opera movie, this fantasy movie where the special effects may not have worked, but they did. They took the chance. It changed everything. The first movie is such a great story with such memorable characters, maybe the greatest villain with Darth Vader. And then that second movie took it to a whole other level. Empire Strikes Back, the twist at the end of that film that changed everything forever, maybe still the greatest twist in film history. And then in Return of the Jedi, bringing it all home with that fantastic ending where the father somehow is redeemed. The good guys win at a tremendous cost. It is the story, and it's not based on any books. It's not based on anything that came before. It is a purely cinematic story. And those three stories play so beautifully as just about 2 hours each. They're 2-hour films. They're all, excited. They're not over long. They're just the right length. They're movies. They were conceived as movies. And you watch each of them. They build on each other perfectly. They tell the perfect story. And we've seen Star Wars attempted so many times, both in its own franchise and in others. And there's never been anything that hit the nail on the head as pure cinema as the original Star Wars trilogy.
All right, Gemini, do we want to recut your opening argument to change your answer to Jaws? Is that cool?
Yeah, you know what? Let's put my eyes. I want to have my eyes blinking, and I want to have creatures walking behind me. Is that okay for the special edition of my?
We can do that in post. We can do it.
Okay. Fix it in post. Fix it in post.
Alrighty, we are going to put 5 minutes on the clock for our opening argument. This is going to be. This is going to be a lot of shouting, and I can't wait. 5 minutes on the clock. Whenever you guys are ready.
Have you ever heard of John Carter or Valerian and Laureline? George Lucas stole everything for Star Wars. That's one of the reasons that these modern sci-fi movies that are based on old stuff come out, and everybody's like, "That's Star Wars." It's like, no, that came before Star Wars. George Lucas.
At least Star Wars had the balls to end. They had the balls to just end and just leave off and not end 27 different times.
It doesn't.
Those were works of literature. Those were works of literature that he was able to adapt into cinema and make them movies, Isaac. He was able to take pre-existing things and make perfect cinematic stories out of them. It's different than doing an adaptation that is beholden to the books, and we've got to try
it's not.
to
we did
be
our own
clear
thing.
to
Lord
the
of the Rings
books.
did its own thing.
No, they did not do that.
Lord of the Rings was beholden to characters that pre-existed.
The fact that we didn't see Tom Bombadil is the only thing they left out.
One word, Ewoks. I'm sorry. Your trilogy it starts at a medium part, and it gets really good, and then it tanks. Your trilogy doesn't hold up.
Yeah, the trilogy does not tank because of Ewoks.
Star Wars fluctuates way too much in quality because you have a good movie, then a great movie, then an okay movie with
Return of the Jedi is a terrific. I'm sick
end.
of this, by the way. Return of the Jedi is a terrific movie. The whole Jabba the Hutt sequence is awesome. The space battle at the end is better than any of the ones that came before.
Both your trilogies have. Well, your trilogy, Star Wars has a lead that you don't like for most of it. And Aragorn in Lord of the Rings is just
he grows
and so boring throughout the entirety of those movies. Like, he's just so stoic and so uninteresting. Like, Viggo Mortensen's underacting the entire time. Like, it makes Aragorn really grating to watch. And plus, Frodo's a whiny little piece of crap.
And unlike Frodo, Luke Skywalker,
it makes your trilogy really.
It's
Luke
remarkable.
You want to talk about whiny little piece of crap?
Luke Skywalker in that first film is just this annoying kid. Look at him in the third film. That is one of the greatest character arcs of all time. There's no other trilogy that takes a character and grows him that way. And you've got
Aragorn is boring the entire time, and so is Frodo.
You've got
at least my characters
iconic characters.
At least my characters changed, Chance. Let's talk about your
movies.
Yeah.
In the first movie, and then nothing happens after that. after that.
Oh no,
Toy
that's
Story.
absolute
Chance.
crap.
Each Toy
Yes.
Story movie is the same movie. They're all
you.
rehashing
No.
the same story. You've got new villains
Oh, like Star
put into
Wars,
the exact
like
same
Star Wars
spot.
doesn't rehash.
All,
Oh, we got to fight the Empire. We got to
No.
fight the Empire. Or Lord of the Rings.
No,
we got to go
the
to Mount Doom.
battles
We
are
got to go to
different.
Mount
That
Doom. We got to go
second
to Mount Doom.
No, because you've got the same. It's an overarching story where Darth Vader and the Emperor are the villains, and they're fighting against those villains. And the way that it all builds to get to that eventual confrontation is a building story. Toy Story.
The thing is, Toy Story. The plot is not the most important thing. The plot, what it represents, the thing.
No, it's
Toy
the
Story
same
uses
messages.
Are you saying
It's
plot
the
doesn't
same
matter?
messages, the same messages, and the same plot.
No, it's not the same message.
Recycled
It is
3
definitely not the
times
same
over.
message.
They are.
No, it's not the same message.
It's all
They
friendship,
use-
and we're friends, and we've got to come together and understand each other better. It's variations of that 3 times over
No,
in the
it's
same
really
plot,
not.
recycled.
When you look-
My
when you look
movie
at the
builds
movie,
to
it's
an
really not.
epic,
The first one
epic
is
climax.
an existentialist nightmare of a movie. It's about finding your place in the world. The second one is about the theme of immortality and
And
what does
finding that
immortality
place in
mean,
the world.
and what does it matter if you can live
Still trying to
forever
find a place in the
if
world.
you can't do the thing you're meant to do. What was that?
All right,
He's still trying to be an existential crisis. Is like, I'm going to go to this museum and find my place here because I'm not Andy's favorite toy anymore. It's still an
by the way,
I'm not even
crisis.
talking, that's not even that movie. That's not even that same movie.
It's the second movie when they're going to Japan.
Isaac, the best versions of your movies
not the
are
extended one.
the extended versions, which were too long to be in the cinemas. Your movies should have been, they're basically
That's
TV
funny
shows.
because my theatrical versions got nominated for 30 Academy Awards in 117, more than any other trilogy.
Because they thought they could.
Star Wars won a ton of Oscars. Okay, and your movies
Lord of the Rings,
best.
Lord of the Rings. If you're not a fan of fantasy, those movies don't do jack for you. Like if you don't like fantasy,
That's
you're not
not
born
true.
with that kind of fantastical.
Yeah,
you're not going to watch those.
That is not true. I have sisters.
They're not.
Hate
Your movies, both of your trilogies do not have the appeal. Do not have mass appeal. If you're not into like that kind of genre, they're not going to grab you. At least my movie can appeal to
30 seconds.
where they can include more of the books are
classics
the
of all time.
best versions. They should have been high budget TV shows. They don't lend themselves to cinema in the
Yes,
same
they
way
do.
that Star Wars
Do
do.
not get the
They're
things
big
like that.
bloated TV episodes.
Big bloody
Plus,
TV
yours
episodes
kind
coming from a
of
Star
yours
Wars
got really
argument.
tainted by the Hobbit trilogy. I mean, yours has the Hobbit trilogy following up, and Jeremy's yours has the prequel to try and follow it up. Yours, which in retrospect,
Let's
those
talk
are
about
really
Toy Story
tainted.
3,
Yeah,
how it has
they
great
couldn't
ending
do
and
it
everything
again.
else is
They
crap.
couldn't ever do a trilogy that was as good as mine. It was too
No,
good. It was too high a bar.
Time. All right. Take a breath. We're good. All right. Isaac, for your closing argument when you are ready.
Jeremy just said that they never could do another trilogy as great as those, but my movie, they brought up The Hobbit. The reason The Hobbits don't work is because my movies are so great. Like I said, nominated for 30 Academy Awards, 117, more than any other movie trilogy. It all scores in the high 90s for Rotten Tomatoes, 90s for Metacritic, all A minus to A plus for cinema scores. Toy Story 3 has a great ending and not much else. Toy Story 2 should have been straight to DVD because that whole thing with Zorg is just garbage thing from a Saturday afternoon special. The first one is a charming little movie, but everything after that is the same thing rehashed. It's all the same stories. The characters don't change or evolve after them. They just change they just rotate the characteristics from one character to another. Buzz Lightyear has a existential crisis in the first one. Oh, let's have that Woody in the second one. It just rotates. Jeremy's Star Wars trilogy, he's talked about the effects. They don't hold up as well as they do. He talked about how there's this incredible through line. They had no idea what they were doing. Otherwise, they would never have had Luke kiss Leia if they would have realized, if they had their mind that they were already siblings. That just would not have happened. They had no idea what they were doing with that trilogy. Like I said, Star Wars has a medium point, a high point, and then a really low point. Toy Story's points are high, and then everything else is just meh. My movies are consistently great. From the first one, The Fellowship, when everything comes together and it starts off all the way to Boromir's death and Gandalf, all that is great. The second one, my favorite of the series, where it really takes off and Gollum gets introduced, and the Battle of Helm's Deep to the third one. People talk about the endings of that movie. That's bullcrap. I'm sick of that. I'm sick of people talking about how this movie never ends and then complain about other movies that rush their endings and don't give enough characters closure. Every character in Lord of the Rings has closure, and they all have emotional closure. And none of them are as powerful as the final closure that brings me to tears every time when Bilbo goes off to the Grey Havens. Screw the people that say that this movie has too many endings. It doesn't. Greatest trilogy.
Preach! All right. All right. Chance, whenever you are ready.
Sorry. Okay, so yeah, Star Wars then fluctuates too much in quality. I mean, you have, like I said, you have a good movie followed by a great movie followed by a so-so movie. Like Return of the Jedi, as compared to the other ones, is not great. It's kind of like the beginning mark of Harrison Ford not wanting to be Han Solo anymore. You get a hero you don't like you don't really like until the third movie. And yeah, Isaac's and also none of these movies have like super broad appeal. If you're not into like sci-fi or fantasy, you're not gonna really fall into any of these movies. And yeah, Isaac, Lord of the Rings, it goes on way too long. Aragorn's a bore, Frodo's a whiner. I mean, the most interesting character in your movie is made of CGI. That's the most compelling character of the entire thing. Hey, he interrupted me. I want that struck from the record. So. But on top of mind, first of all, Isaac, I don't think you understand what existentialism is, because the second one does not tackle that. I think when people talk about the Toy Story movies, you need to look at the themes, the motifs, what's trying to tackle. I mean, the first one is an existential crisis of this one character trying to realize his place in the universe. The second one is about immortality. And it's like, what are you essentially deciding, like, am I going to go to a Japanese museum where I can be displayed for all time, or am I going to spend my last few days with Andy, before I eventually fall apart? Like, that is a great philosophical dilemma that I don't think gets talked about enough, just because that's a philosophical question that's taught in most college classes, which I think is really important to tackle. And then Toy Story 3, that is the antithesis of that. Like, that is tackling mortality and then just accepting your fate, accepting you're going to die, accepting that one day you are going to move on, and you need to accept that. And I think that theme is tackled very well in that movie, which is why I think that movie is so acclaimed. You want to talk about critical acclaim, you want to talk about critical acclaim, you want to talk about Oscars. Toy Story was the first movie to get a Oscar nomination for Best Screenplay, which was huge back then. Especially, it was huge back then in '95, where things like that just did not happen. You want to talk about critical acclaim? First two movies, 100% each. Second movie, 99%. All of them A+ on Cinema Score. I want to say the first and the third have 90s on Metacritic. The second one has an 88. I know that for sure. Several Academy Awards, including the third one being one of the very few movies to be one of the very few animated movies to be nominated for Best Animated Feature in a year that was a super strong animated year and still managed to stand apart. And also, I think when you're looking at Best Trilogy, you need to look at most. I'm blanking on words here. You need to look at the overall scope. You need to look at what's trying to tackle. I think this does a great job of tackling like philosophy in the most unexpected way. It has appeal to everybody who was a kid at some point, or had a toy at some point, or had something they played with at some point. Like, it appeals to young. It appeals to, like, it's multi-generational. Appeals to young and old. And I think that it's something that anybody can come in and sit down and watch and just relate to in some way, shape, or form. So I think Best Trilogy, hands down, Toy Story.
Alrighty, just a real quick fact check on Chance's closing argument. You did say it's one of the few animated movies to be nominated for Best Animated Feature.
Picture.
I know what you meant. I'm just saying every animated movie.
Every
nomination for Best Animated Feature was animated.
Well, they animated.
One of the few to be nominated for Best Picture. Yes. Jeremy, for your closing.
Okay, we're talking about Best Movie Trilogy, and my movies are. This is the movie trilogy because they create these fantastic characters. They create the great hero's journey with Luke Skywalker. They have the great villain with Darth Vader. They have just equally great villain with Emperor Palpatine. Unforgettable supporting characters from Yoda to Obi-Wan Kenobi to, of course, Han Solo and Princess Leia. The cast is unparalleled, and they do all of this in 2-hour films. They create a whole universe, and not only do they create a whole universe in these films, they create a universe that became part of the popular imagination of children from the 80s to today, the 70s, 80s to today. This is the universe of Star Wars is ingrained in the popular imagination in the way that really nothing else is. Star Wars is a part of who we are. It's a part of our imagination. It's what we think about when we think about other planets and imagination. And the lightsaber itself is like, that is such a part of our imagination, what we are. That the Disney theme parks, you can go and learn how to use a lightsaber, and you can go on adventures in this world. There's nothing else really like this in popular imagination, and it didn't need a specific book. Yeah, it borrowed from some literary sources, but it didn't need a specific thing. It had its own imagination. It had its own take. It brought all of this to the forefront, and it is its own thing. And these movies won a lot of technical Oscars. No, they didn't win Best Picture and everything, but that's just because we were just starting to realize that popular special effects fantasy cinema could be taken seriously. And in the years since, Empire Strikes Back has been accepted as one of the greatest films of all time on the AFI list, as the first Star Wars film has. These movies have gained recognition in the years since, and they led to movies like Lord of the Rings actually being taken seriously. If it wasn't for what Star Wars had done before in legitimizing the genre, you wouldn't have everything that came after, and nothing else has resonated in the way that these Star Wars films do. And I will say, you guys keep attacking Return of the Jedi. Oh, it falls off the end. That last movie's not as good. All you said was it has Ewoks and it's not as good. You didn't say why it's not as good, because this movie has one of the greatest opening sequences introducing Jabba the Hutt, which is such a memorable character. It has some of the greatest space battles you'll ever see, and it has that incredible climax where somehow Luke Skywalker redeems his father. There's nothing as resonant and as emotional as in any other trilogy as that moment where his father is redeemed. He was a machine. He was a villain. He was the source of nightmares, but he was still a man. And this is this foresight that George Lucas had all along to tell this story. He knew that's where the story was going. And if you're going to say, oh, they didn't know what they were doing because, the brother and sister kiss. They didn't know they were brother and sister. So that totally plays. Everyone tries to hit that as a knock against the movie. That's not a knock against the movie. These are two characters who don't know who they are, and you find out later on who they are. It's this great mythic story that all comes together, and that ending in Return of the Jedi brings it all home. Return of the Jedi is a great film. They're all great films on different levels for different reasons, and they are pure cinema, and they work as cinema. Lord of the Rings, they're beholden to the books. They're really long. If they were 5 hours long each, they'd be even better because they would be able to incorporate more of what was in the books. They should have been like great television. And like I said with Toy Story, there's a lot of rehashing. There is no rehashing of the story arcs or the general story because it builds perfectly as a trilogy, and it changed everything, and it is still the greatest, and it is part of our imagination. It is Star Wars.
All right. Chance is a little bit under the weather over there.
Yeah. I said I said the story of the characters.
For the record, I have this Boba Fett on my nights. I literally had to turn him around because they didn't want him to see me do this.
I am wearing it, by the way.
All right, we all have Star Wars. We all love Star Wars. So, all right, here's what I'm going to this one.
It's really hard.
This was definitely a tough one. I think that the person who was taken out first. And he tried to make a comeback, but I think Chance was out first as far as the arguments that.
Did you Toy Story 3 bias?
It's not Toy Story 3 bias, Chance. But you guys said it is a lot of rehashing, and Chance said it's not rehashing the themes. But then they said, yeah, it is rehashing the themes.
Do you understand what existentialism is? Because I don't think Isaac does. I don't think you do either.
No, I do. You literally you said that the first movie is about existentialism, which is just not being aware of where you are in the world, and then you said the second one was trying to find your place in the world.
No, that's not what I said at all. No, that's not what I said at all. You're misquoting me.
You said the second one's about trying to find your place in the world. That's what you said in your opening argument.
I did not say that at all.
We can check the tape.
Check the tape.
So then it comes down to between Jeremy and Isaac. That was tough. I love Isaac's rant about how there's not too many endings and how it's consistent. I really, really enjoyed that. Obviously, if we're going just based on like awards and acclaim and things like that, Lord of the Rings takes it. But obviously, that's not what I'm not judging based on how many Best Picture Oscars it won. Although it certainly doesn't hurt Lord of the Rings case. Jeremy, you were talking a lot about how Star Wars really legitimized the genre, how it's in the popular imagination, how Lord of the Rings maybe wouldn't have been here without Star Wars, which whether that's true or not, it was a point that was made. How it took a chance. I think while Isaac defended the knocks, I think there were more knocks against Lord of the Rings, and I think Isaac defended them better. I think Jeremy did point this out in his closing. I don't think there were a lot of legitimate busts against the Star Wars trilogy. I think it was just Ewoks, Jedi isn't good, and no through line. And I think all three of those things were combated really well by Jeremy, so I'm giving the second point to Jeremy too.
Yeah.
I don't have to argue right now, do I? Am I done for now?
You are sitting out for the final question.
All right, I'm taking my steps into the pool. We'll be back. Just kidding.
All right.
I hear a kid in the background like, God damn!
Hurry up, guys.
Okay,
I really want to go to the pool.
Before moving into the next question, because Jeremy's won and he's out already, Chance, go first on the third question.
Yeah,
and Isaac will
I
have
was
his
just going to ask that, yeah. Okay. All right, so we are on to question 3. This is Chance versus Isaac. All right. Question 3, Chance versus Isaac, to get there to the final question to combat Jeremy. Question 3, what actor or actress was least deserving of the Best Actor or Actress Oscar that they won? So, what Best Actor or Actress was least deserving of their Oscar? Chance, we are going to you first for your opening argument.
Okay, so I'm going to open with a little riff from a song. So, here we go. A long, long time ago, Art Carney won... Hold on, let me just fact check this because I want to make sure I have this right. Yeah, so long, long time ago in the distant land of 1974, Art Carney won Best Actor for Harry and Tonto, which was fairly undeserving, especially when he's up against Jack Nicholson in Chinatown and Al Pacino in The Godfather 2. Now you fast forward to 1991, or no, I'm sorry, not to 1991, 1992, in which Al Pacino finally won his Best Actor Oscar for Scent of a Woman, which is an okay movie and started the trend of Al Pacino. Hooah! If I was a younger man, I would take a flamethrower to him. You're out of order. That's the start of like big Al Pacino. But when you look at what he was up against, there is no excuse for him winning that because he was up against Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven, Stephen Ray in The Crying Game, Robert Downey Jr. in Chaplin, and most importantly, Denzel Washington in a transformative performance as Malcolm X, which caused another makeup Oscar later in the year. So I think Al Pacino winning for Scent of a Woman is definitely the most undeserved Oscar, period.
All right, Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman. Isaac, you are up for your opening argument.
All right. My pick is Roberto Benigni for I don't even remember. Life is Beautiful. The Holocaust movie that he beat Tom Hanks for Saving Private Ryan, Ian McKellen for Gods and Monsters, Nick Nolte for Affliction, and most notably, in my opinion, Edward Norton for American History X. The Life is Beautiful tells the story of this Italian man who it's kind of a love story, kind of a comedy. Long story short, they fall in love, have a kid, then the Holocaust happens, and they get sent to an internment camp and or a concentration camp. And Roberto Benigni makes a game out of it so that his kid can like process it, basically. And that's the story. It's a perfectly fine movie. Like it's not. I don't know. I don't even know if it's a fine movie. His performance is basically a Charlie Chaplin impression the whole time, It's not much acting, not much depth, and when you're dealing with the Holocaust, I think there should be more depth than that. So least deserving, Roberto Benigni.
All right. So we are going to put 5 minutes on the clock. Whenever you guys are ready, I will start the timer.
Give me a second. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Okay. So how about that Lord of the Rings movies?
I don't want to talk about it.
All right, I guess since we're on break, Jeremy, congrats. Good job.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, good job.
Aaron, you want to yell at me for making the wrong call?
Wait,
No,
so am I done? Am I done today, or do
No,
I
no,
have to wait
so-
and fight
so-
again?
so
Yeah,
the
that's what I
next-
thought.
It's just you.
Okay.
Once we have a winner between these
You're-
two, so now it's a best
Yeah,
of three.
you're
for
jinxing me then, Aaron. Stop jinxing me.
Yeah, it's not over yet. There's
Yeah,
the
I'm
best
waiting.
of 3 between these two, and then
Yeah.
we'll go to the final.
I mean, Jeremy, if we want to get technical, Jeremy, if you really want to be done for today, we could come back and fight tomorrow for the final question. If you really
Nah,
want to
it's
get
okay.
technical.
Nah, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay. All right. I'm ready now.
I'm just gonna reintroduce the open forum. All right.
Go.
Alrighty, so the open forum round is about to begin. I'm gonna have 5 minutes on the clock. Whenever you two are ready, you may begin.
Okay, so Roberto Benigni in Life is Beautiful. I can see why he won that year, just because he does give a very emotional performance. He does manage to bring a lot of light and a lot of warmth to a role in which that shouldn't be a thing. Like that movie, for all its purposes, should not work, just because you're essentially putting a guy who's a humorist inside a situation where you have to be like anything but. But I think the reason Roberto Benigni works in that role, and I think the reason he won, is just because he managed to take that sort of material and really elevate it and make that really like emotionally powerful and really emotionally resonant. Not resident. Why did I say that? And I think when looking at the rest of them, I think Tom Hanks definitely had stronger work. He already won twice before that, so that's the reason he didn't win. Ian McKellen and Gods and Monsters, sure, I guess. But yeah, Edward Norton, I don't think he should have won for American History X, just because I just don't think that character his arc wasn't all that interesting, if that makes any sense. If you understand what I'm trying to say.
I understand that it's not interesting, but it says nothing to his acting. His acting, in my opinion, is much better than Roberto
but like
Benigni.
if he doesn't have an arc that gives him enough to act against, like how is he gonna have that interesting performance?
He went from like the most racist neo-Nazi who curbs
and then like
dogs.
in the very next scene, he's trying to like be like against that.
Not in the next scene. It's the whole movie. It's his journey. It's a non-linear storyline.
I don't know. I think Edward Norton's character in American History X became way too much. But when talking about undeserving Oscars, I think you need to look at his competition that year. Roberto Benigni's competition in 1998 was not as strong as Al Pacino had in 1992 when he won. And when he won his Oscar, he had much stronger performances to go up against, and he still managed to tell me that he was really undeserved in his role.
I don't think you need to look at who he's up against. I think you need to look at who I'm saying.
That's what
you're
it
saying.
is. Like you have to look at
who the person
when you're
is.
talking about undeserving Oscars, you got to look at the competition. You can't look at the performance as a whole. You got to look at the competition for that year.
You definitely have to look at the performance. I'll put it this way: What
No,
Al Pacino did
plays a bigger factor.
What Al Pacino did in Scent of a Woman was better than what Roberto Benigni did in Life is Beautiful.
No, absolutely false. This is the beginning of
absolutely.
Al Pacino becoming a cartoon. This is where he became a cartoon.
That's
became
where
all
it
big.
started. This was an original performance from Pacino. This was Pacino that we never saw.
We've seen him performance from Benigni too. That was a performance from that guy.
And we've never seen him again, and he never really did anything before that. That's what I mean. Like, Pacino is an established actor. This was something new that he did. Now, he's done it since then, sure, but at the time, this was something new, and he was deserving of it. Roberto Benigni.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how new it was or not. The point is, it was not very good, and
it was good. It's still a good movie.
No, it really wasn't.
That movie gets crap because everybody thinks that somebody else should have won, which maybe they should have. But it's still not a bad movie.
You just admitted his Oscar was undeserved. You just admitted his Oscar was undeserved.
Exactly, but it's not more undeserved than Roberto Benigni. Roberto Benigni.
No, it absolutely is.
You yourself said the movie should have been a thing.
We're far stronger than him. Roberto Benigni was up like
he was barely
Al Pacino. Acting. So was Al Pacino. He became like he parodied himself.
No, he didn't. He parried himself later. Yes, but this was the original one. This was him doing something new and doing something good.
That performance is still like decent to not very good. No. To the point where like it's something like a Daniel Day-Lewis performance. Like I compare that a lot to Daniel Day-Lewis in Gangs of New York, where he's just so big and so over the top that it really takes you out of the movie.
Don't talk about Gangs of New York like that. Don't you dare,
Roberto Benigni actually helps you bring to that movie. The point where like I don't think any other actor could have done that justice, because you needed someone who could convey that emotionality and convey that warmth and convey that humor and make you like forget the fact that these guys
in the Holocaust. That's my problem. That's the problem. But, like, and it feels wrong because.
Hey, but it's not about the movie. It's not about the movie. It's about the performance. It's about the performance. You just said it's not about the movie. It's about the performance. And look, that's what the performance called for, and that's what you needed. That you just said. You just said.
What's deserving?
That's not a performance. What's deserving?
Performance should not be rewarded. I'm sorry, you shouldn't be rewarded for making a joke of the Holocaust.
But that he didn't do that. That was the movie that did that.
He did. He was a clown. He was a clown in the movie. He was less deserving than Pacino. Pacino got emotionality and layers to his performance.
So did he.
No, he didn't.
So did he. He did it with his wife. He did it with his son.
Time there. We're going time. All right, we're going to go to closings. Chance, we started with you. So for your closing, you're first.
Okay. Okay. So Roberto Benigni in Life is Beautiful. Yes, he did. He did try to put. He didn't. The movie itself was trying to go from the point of view of a person who was trying to be positive in a situation that was entirely negative. Which, I mean, from a psychological standpoint, when you're in that, you get someone who's going to try to keep up morale, despite the fact that you shouldn't be. I think that's a real commentary on the human spirit. The fact that you need to try and smile through the bad times. I think Benigni's performance, he did a really good job at conveying a lot of emotional depth, of conveying a lot of heart, conveying humor when he needed to. The humor is not as bad, not as like egregious as you're making it, because it's really not that bad. He's really just trying to try and keep the spirits up of his people, which at that time I'm sure they had people like that. I'm sure they had people like that to do that and try to make sure that people weren't too doom and gloom, make sure people were all right, people weren't on ease. And I think him doing that, and I think that movie being as emotionally resonant as it is, I think that made that character really, really sympathetic and really layered as a character standpoint. I'm about to mention, like, Roberto Benigni's acting did so much to help that, which, and I was looking for who else was nominated that year and like what else was going on at that time. I can understand why he won. Al Pacino, this is a case of an actor who was not told. Excuse me. This is a case of an actor who was not told no, and he just went just as cartoony and as over the top as he possibly could, and it really takes you out of the movie. It really makes you take a step back, and it really makes you think, oh, this was not good. And you even said it yourself. There's been a massive backlash against like people who think he should have won, just because like when we're talking about most undeserving, you got to look at performance, and you also got to look at who else was nominated, who else could have won that year, because it's also about. Like, winning an Oscar is about like your competition that year as well as how good you are. And I think the fact that Al Pacino had actors giving performances that would become like staples of their career, I think that's the reason his win is so egregious, because he was nowhere near the best actor that year. He was hands down the best actor in that category. And I'm sorry, I did say best actor. He was hands down the worst actor in that category. Robert, don't hold that against me. You know what I meant. He was the worst in that category, and I think the fact that you have actors giving performances as characters who would go on to become some of their career's best work, but you still gave the win to Al Pacino just because he had never won an Oscar before, I think that's the reason his win is the most egregious.
I resent the fact that you think I'd hold that against you. No.
Isaac, because I said it.
I know. If there's like a small slip up like that, I don't hold that against you. If you like claim that you meant to say like the complete opposite, like whatever. But if there's one word slip up, I don't care. Isaac, ready for your closing?
Okay. You said Pacino was cartoony and over the top. Yes, he was maybe a little bit, but imagine that times 10 and then put it in the Holocaust, and that's what you have with Roberto Benigni in Life is Beautiful. Nobody was at the top of their game when he won for Scent of a Woman. None of the other performances there are the best of that person's career. I'm sorry. Edward Norton in American History, that is the best performance of his career. This is the egregious loss. Also, when you're talking about deserving, you do have to talk about the person and their career. And Al Pacino, as an actor, deserves an Academy Award more than Roberto Benigni has ever deserved anything and will ever. Like Al Pacino is better in Scent of a Woman than Roberto Benigni, but also across his career, he's become and he has been more deserving than Benigni, even at his best, which is Life is Beautiful. You said yourself that this movie feels like it shouldn't be a thing. It is. It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. He doesn't have layers to his performance. He's the same over-the-top Charlie Chaplin impersonator clown that he is with his friend when they're driving through the countryside, with his wife when they meet her in the square with the bike, and with his son while they're seeing people walk to the showers. That's not that. I'm sorry, it just isn't. It caused a backlash then, and it's distasteful watching it again now. You have something like Spielberg's classic shot of the little girl in the red dress. You don't want Roberto Benigni doing pratfalls around her. I'm sorry, you just don't. It's wrong.
I kind of do.
No, you don't. Even Charlie Chaplin said he made The Great Dictator, and he said if he had known of the horrors of the Holocaust, he wouldn't have made that at the time. And Roberto Benigni is basically just playing him. He was barely acting. And when you're talking about deserving, Pacino versus Roberto Benigni, there's no contest there. Neither performance necessarily deserves an Oscar, but one is way more deserving than the other. Pacino deserved it way more than Benigni.
Alrighty, good wrap up there by both players. Sorry, I always take time.
That's fine.
Let's see. So I think, especially in the 5-minute open forum, this was a lot of, but what about yours? Or, yeah, mine is too. Like, I don't know that there were a lot of extremely...
What about yours? That's like the Battleground defense. What about yours?
That's what those 5 minutes were. It was a lot of, well, the people in my year deserved it more than mine. Well, yeah, that happened in my year too. That's the point of an undeserving Oscar. Or like, oh, were layers in your character. Well, there were layers in your character. Like, I don't know. The main round, the main round didn't get a lot of original points for me. It was really in the opening and closings that one lost this. I think what Isaac said in his closing brought it home for me as far as Oscars are awarded, yes, for an individual performance in an individual movie, but also they are, whether we want them to be or not, a career award. And although he was cartoony in Scent of a Woman, what he had done up to that point was deserving, whereas Benigni had never done anything deserving, and it was even more distasteful and more egregious. So I'm going to give that point to Isaac by just a little bit. I'm leaning Isaac on that one.
Oh come on! I can't even fight anything in the closing. Whatever.
Well, yeah, but he had still brought that up earlier, man.
Fair, whatever. No, it's fine. I'm off my game today.
Yeah, I never count anything in the closing that can't be counter argued, but he did frame the argument that way in the mid form as well.
No, that's fine.
All right, so we're on to question 4. Still Chance versus Isaac. And if Isaac hits this, he's going to go into the final question against Jeremy. If Chance hits this, we go to one more with Chance v. Isaac. So pressure's on just enough. As we go into this is question 4. We are asking you guys question 4. What is the best performance in a bad movie? And Isaac, you are going first. So whenever you're ready for your opening.
All right. In my opinion, the best performance in a bad movie is one that happened pretty recently, and I still rewatch this movie, and it's mainly for this performance. I also watch it because it's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine because I love gangster movies, but I can admit that the movie doesn't hold together. I'm talking about Elle Fanning in Live by Night. She portrays Loretta Figgis, the daughter of the Tampa police captain. She has aspirations to be a movie actress, and she's young and innocent. And she, I believe, Joe Coughlin hooks her up with somebody out there. She takes the trip out to Hollywood and basically gets pimped out, kidnapped, raped. And it's a horrible story. And then she comes back to her father, who can't deal with that. She becomes kind of a preacher while her father falls apart mentally and eventually beats her. And it's this tragic story of this girl losing her innocence and coming to terms with the world that she lives in. And the movie tragically ends with her taking her own life. Or not the movie, but her story ends with her tragically taking her own life. And the performance she gives is easily the best part of this movie. It's emotional, and it's easily the best performance I've seen in a bad movie.
Alrighty, Elle Fanning and Live by Night. Chance, over to you for your opening argument.
Yeah, there are a lot of things I debated taking when I had this question, but really only one stood to mind, and it's from an actor who has pretty recently passed away, and he pretty recently passed away, and people underrated him as an actor, and it was prevalent to the fact where he just transcended bad source material where he was in, and I've of course talking about Alan Rickman in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, because this movie is awful. Kevin Costner as a British person, who the hell thought that was a good idea? Morgan Freeman is far more interesting than any of the main characters, except for one, and that's Alan Rickman as the sheriff of Nottingham. I'm not going to bother telling the story because you already know it. But I think why he stands apart from just about any other character in the movie is the fact that this character is written pretty poorly, but I think Alan Rickman brings a gravitas, and he brings a presence and a charisma to this role that makes it that 100% makes the movie completely watchable. So, yeah, I am saying Alan Rickman for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Alrighty, Alan Rickman versus Elle Fanning. We're gonna put 5 minutes on the clock. 3, 2, 1, fight!
Only in this form could you put those two against each other.
Oh my god! Can you imagine these guys actually fighting?
Yeah, in the red corner. All right, I'm gonna actually start the clock whenever you guys start.
All right. The thing about Elle Fanning is she's much like everything Live by Night. I'm more captivated by her arc than her actual performance. I think you could have plugged and played Dakota in that role. She would have done just as fine. I don't think Elle Fanning brought
Elle is
anything.
a far better actress than Dakota ever was.
No, she is. Elle is a better actress, but I think the way that role character is written, the way she's directed, I don't think it's her. I think it's the kind of the writing from the source material that makes that character. That makes that character's arc interesting. I think her arc is interesting. I think that character performance is like she's fine. That's the best I can say for that one.
She's fine. No, the character, like the arc isn't interesting without her performance. It's just another beat in that movie. Like it's a familiar arc of a character losing her innocence, but it's her performance that makes it so effective. Some of her line delivery in that movie just breaks your heart because you see the pain in her eyes when she's up there preaching and she lifts her arms up and she speaks with such conviction, only to see her lose it later. Like that's the performance that it's her performance that really sticks out.
I actually think Zoe Saldana and Chris Cooper give better performances than Elle Fanning in that movie. She's not even the best performance in that movie.
Oh no.
If you can maybe buy romantic chemistry with Ben Affleck, you get extra points.
There was no chemistry between Zoe Saldana and Ben Affleck. Oh my gosh, no.
But there was. She had the charisma in the role, and I think Chris Cooper, being there and seeing this whole thing happen to his daughter, I think that's way more interesting than what's happening to the daughter in the movie. He
basically plays the same character he did in American Beauty, just this old, craggly old man who eventually grows to hate his kid.
And Elle Fanning plays the same Lost of Innocence character that's in a shit ton of movies prior to this.
I said that it's a similar character arc, but the performance sticks out above that. Chris Cooper's not doing anything new. Elle Fanning is bringing I
want to fact check. How much screen time did she have in this movie? Because she did not leave an impression with me at all. Because I don't think she's even in it all that much.
How long she's in it? That doesn't matter if we're talking about performance.
No, that's just asking for my personal clarity.
My character is only in it for maybe 15 minutes, and she gives her better performance than your character does in a whole movie. He plays the same.
No,
he plays this malevolent, evil person. There's nothing. Alan Rickman does that in his sleep in every movie he played a bad guy in. He just plays evil well. Yes, it's a great role.
But he had to play evil well in a movie where everything was god awful.
He's easily the best part in that movie, and it's easy to be that. He could have done that in his sleep. It's easy to be the best part in your movie too. But I think the thing, but look at the acclaim he got. Even the biggest hater of this movie contested that Alan Rickman was fantastic in this film. Because he even won a BAFTA for this movie, and England fucking hates this film. I think that shows you just how powerful that this film is. That's film in the performance, not the film. Performance in this film. That film is powerful. I'm not gonna lie. It affected me.
That film is powerful. It's driving me out of the room. But Alan Rickman, it makes you want to run out the room. But Alan Rickman, the entire time, keeps you in. He keeps you invested. Every time he's on screen, you can't take your eyes off the screen. As opposed to the rest of the movie, where you just want to look away and not turn back.
His ass was on screen at one point, but I mean.
Oh yeah, he showed his ass. Elle Fanning never shows her ass in that movie.
Yes, actually, she kind of does, but it's horrible and
kind of
tragic.
Yes,
you really shouldn't have gone there, man.
You brought it up. You brought up Alan Rickman's ass. You started it.
I'm just saying, Alan Rickman plays these villain roles in his sleep. He plays the same character.
And Elle Fanning plays torture teens in her sleep. Because wasn't anything her character in that than her character in Super 8? She's the same thing she did in Super 8 in 2011.
No, she wasn't kidnapped and raped in Super 8.
But she was from a broken home.
She was brainwashed into this religious zealot,
but she was from a broken home. She wasn't a coming of age. She wasn't a coming of age outskirts teen type role.
This isn't a coming of age role.
Well, I can't really explain. It's not loss of innocence, not coming with loss of innocence. That's what I meant to say. It is sort of a loss of innocence type thing. But that's something she can take cues from any various actresses to do that. That's a role that we've seen done countless times. But I think that kind of blends in with the rest of the movie, where it's all just fine. It's all just a big shade of fine. Robin Hood Prince of Thieves is an awful film, but I think Alan Rickman stands apart from that. He makes that film watchable. He makes that he owns that role. He owns that screen, and he keeps you invested in a movie where if plug and played any other actor, you would be just so
nobody
uninvested.
wants to rewatch that.
And time there. Alrighty, Isaac, we started with you, so we are going to you for your closing.
All right, nobody wants to rewatch Prince of Thieves just for Alan Rickman. I'm sorry. Alan Rickman, like I said, no, I'm sorry for you. Like I said, Alan Rickman does these roles in his sleep. He's doing the same thing in this that he did in Quickly Down Under or even Die Hard. He plays the villain, he chooses the scenery, and it's great. I'm saying Elle Fanning brings a gravitas to her role that is just affecting. I break down crying. I'm just going to really quickly read this line that she has. She says, this is a character who was super religious. She became religious after her terrible experiences, and then with her experiences with Dad, this is her finally opening up to be this is where I see the world. She says, we're all going to hell. Joe says, I don't think you're going to hell. And she says, you know what I learned is I've been thrusting my soul out to God. And he says, what? And she says, this is heaven right here. We're in it now. And Joe says, well, how come it looks like hell? And she says, because we fucked it all up. I don't know if there is a God, but I hope there is, and I hope he's kind. Wouldn't it be swell? In that last 2 lines, I hope he's kind. Wouldn't that be swell? Breaks my heart every time because this poor girl who's been through all this, all she hopes is for a kind God. Like, that would just be swell to her. And the performance that she gives there in that line delivery is more affecting than anything Alan Rickman does in Prince of Thieves. At his most malevolent, at his best, he doesn't even instill any kind of the same fear on the level of the feelings that you have for this girl in Live by Night. By far, she gives a better performance in this than Alan Rickman does. He just chews scenery like he always did.
Alrighty. Well, Chance, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to kick you from the call for that burp.
Damn it.
We'll go to you for your closing, Chance, when you're ready.
Okay. Okay, so Elle Fanning had to play a character who was who lost her innocence, and I think she gets lost. Like I said, she gets lost in the shuffle. That performance is like, it's much like everything in the movie. It's fine. It's nothing extraordinary. You must have a very fragile heart, because I heard that line and I rolled my eyes. I was like, oh my god, this scene needs to end. But yeah, I think her character performance is fine, and I think, you know, she can take cues. I'm sure she's done roles where she's lost her innocence. Maybe Neon Demon was essentially a very similar arc. But you want to talk about, I mean, the whole question is, you have to be able to stand apart from the overall quality of the movie, and I think that's textbook Alan Rickman in this, because like, this still stands apart. This still stands for some people as one of his best performances, despite the fact that the movie itself is not very good. And you want to talk about lines. One of the lines super great in pop culture is, "Loxley, I will cut your heart out with a spoon." And then, you know, someone asks him, like, why a spoon, cousin? Why not an act? Because it's dull, you twit, it'll hurt more. Like, he has just so many great lines and great line readings in a movie that's just so unreactive and just so dull and so boring, that he managed to stand out as really good in an otherwise just super terrible movie. And I think the fact that, you know, he was able to overcome the bad image of this movie, at least in his home country of England, and win a BAFTA in a country that, like, to this day still does not like this movie, because, you know, they cast a American as a famous British character. Yeah, despite the fact that they hate that movie, they're still rewarding him for that great performance. People still look to that as one of his better performances today, which is why I think this is hands down the best performance in a bad movie.
Alrighty, good closing there by Chance. I really think Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves needs an animated fox, but that's just me.
Yes, it does. That's the last good Robin Hood movie we got. Taron Egerton's gonna fix that with his semi-automatic crossbows.
Yep. All right. So the question here is the best performance in a bad movie. I think both of you talked about why your performance was so captivating and so powerful and so effective in the movie, like why it was a good performance. I heard more from one person about why their movie was specifically bad. This is tough. I think Chance talked more about why Robin Hood was bad and why Alan Rickman was good in it. And Isaac, you said it was a guilty pleasure, and you did talk at the very beginning of your opening about some of the things that didn't really hold up about the movie, but I didn't think there was enough emphasis on why your movie was bad and why Elle Fanning shined in it. So I think I'm leaning towards Chance on that one. But I agree with both of you. Great performances in not so great movies.
Okay, can I admit something real quick?
Sure.
Never seen Live by Night.
What? I saw it twice in theaters.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I liked it. I didn't mind.
Can I just say real quick that I legitimately like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves? I love that movie. I guess I'm just a freak.
Well, I'm taking his points away, and we're good.
I did like how Kevin Costner just gave up halfway through. Just like, fuck it. I'm not gonna do the accent anymore.
He doesn't have a good accent, but he's still badass. All right, whatever.
All right.
Go ahead.
You're good. All right, so Chance and Isaac are tied up at 1-1, which means whoever wins this argument will go on to face Jeremy in the final question. So It's for many of marbles, not quite all of the marbles, but this is for many marbles. Question 5. Alrighty, question 5. What is the best Pixar movie? Best Pixar movie. I believe we are going to Chance first. Yes, we are going to Chance first. Chance, what's the best Pixar movie?
Okay, guys, so hear me out. Cars 2 is not. No, I'm kidding. My real answer, I mean, you saw me argue at length for a certain Pixar trilogy. I'm gonna, throw it on the line for another picture for a movie from that trilogy, and that is the first Toy Story. The first Toy Story, 1995, came out. No one had ever seen anything done like this, and I think this showed the full capability of Pixar. It showed its ability to have great layered characters, great writing, and tell just a great story that appealed to both kids and adults. I think this is the epitome of what Pixar can do. It's them coming out swinging, and I think I still think it stands is the first, and I still think it stands as their best.
Alrighty, we have Toy Story on the table. Isaac, who are Woody and Buzz duking out against?
Woody and Buzz are going under the sea to duke it out against Nemo and his dad. My pick is the Finding Nemo. This is kind of an unconventional pick, and I feel like it's forgotten about, and I don't understand why. I remember this, I believe, was the first Pixar movie I ever saw, and yeah, Pixar never topped it, in my opinion. I think you have a story here that is better than any of their other stories. Most of their other stories blend together a little bit. They're a little bit repetitive. Toy Story is actually one of the exceptions. I'm a little annoyed that you didn't pick something else. But that was perfect. No, but my story is different than most stories. It's an adventure story. It's a story about fatherhood and friendship and independence and trust and loss and learning with that. It has, in my opinion, the most emotional opening to any animated movie ever. That opening with what's it? Coral, yeah, Coral and
Coral.
Right. When the zombies showed up, it was very, very scary. But no,
the
Barracuda.
Yeah, Barracuda. I'm like, there's zombies. What did I have that happen?
No, you said Coral. I was going with the Walking Dead joke.
Yeah, I know.
But that final look where Marlin is like, I want to name this half Marlin Jr., that half Coral Jr. We're done. Like, he just wasn't that invested. And then when he lost everything, his wife and all his other children, that shot of him holding that egg and saying, "My little Nemo, it's okay," still gets to me. It's got an incredible soundtrack. Won the best animated movie. And yeah, my pick is Finding Nemo.
Alrighty. Awesome. So, obviously, Pixar is a monster in animation, and there are lots of best Pixar movies. These are arguably two of the best. So there are going to be 5 minutes on the clock, if I can unlock my phone. All right. 5 minutes whenever the first one of you begins yapping.
Okay, so first of all, let me preface it this. These are both, I think we agree, these are both great movies. Like, there's a reason that was the first Pixar movie to win Best Animated Feature, which, granted, I'm feel free saying that because you can't use that against my movie because that category did not exist when my movie was out. But I think there's a few problems with Finding Nemo that I see. Like, there's been kinks in the armor, like, mostly because, like, it tries to be broad in scope, but in the fact that it's these two people. And the fact, like, everybody's talking about that, it tries to be like broad in scope, but it feels like it all takes place in like Akron, Ohio. It has like a problem that like a lot of the Star Wars movie has. Like, it tries to be big, it professes it to be big, but it's really not. And the emotion is like kind of lost. These characters, especially like seeing and Finding Dory, it makes me realize that these characters, they're not like super layered. They're not like, you don't need to. They're not characters that really like stand out in the pantheon of like Pixar's Hall of Great Characters. But you want to talk great characters, you can talk about Woody, you could talk about Buzz in this movie, you could talk about the whole like reactivity between those two. Those two have some of the best anime chemistry I think I've ever seen in a movie. And I think you combine that with the smart writing, which Joss Whedon was a writer on the script. You can completely tell the fact that they can, have these fun little gags and then, like jokes that can appeal to like the older crowd. I think this is like the epitome of what Pixar can do. And like at this point, like Pixar, like when your movie came out, at that point, Pixar had kind of like at that movie and movies like on, they developed a formula. And I think the fact that Finding Nemo kind of takes from that formula, I think it really taints, the overall scope of like.
It doesn't.
The base Pixar formula is like characters get separated from the thing and then go to find the thing, big emotional climax, and then that's it.
You mean like Woody and Buzzy? You mean like Woody and Buzz getting separated from Andy's room?
I'm not saying we don't follow it, but like we originate. It's not my movie's fault that other Pixar movies took the wrong lessons from Toy Story. Okay, I'm trying to say like what my movie did, it originated that formula. The other movies took the wrong lessons from that. It's not our fault. It's not Toy Story's fault that other movies trying to repeated that formula, and especially like your movie especially repeated that formula, having pretty much the exact same plot. Like two characters get separated from the thing and have to get back to the thing.
It's not two characters getting separated from the thing. It's a father losing his little boy and having to mount this rescue mission, and it's also him learning to accept this this disabled fish that tries to help him. Like it's a different movie than you give it credit for.
But isn't that movie kind of insensitive to the mentally challenged?
No, it's not.
It kind of is. Like you don't get like Dory's super one note. She's kind of annoying, and then like the fact you're supposed to laugh at her is kind of taboo. Like she doesn't really get like a super layered character arc until Finding Dory, in which we delve more into that mental illness. Like looking back at it now, you kind of feel bad for laughing at the painfully obviously mentally handicapped.
Yeah, but you're not laughing at her handicapped. You're laughing at the situations they're in.
Really,
I'm sorry.
And plus, I want to say
my characters do hold up in the lexicon of Pixar characters. I'm sorry, and we have a bunch of minor characters that stand out, like Crush or like Bruce. That
Crush stands out because Crush is fun. Like that's why. He's essentially a Ninja Turtle without the ninja.
Okay, no pizza involved. But,
no pizza either.
I'm just saying, even if there is a formula to both of our movies, I will put this out there, and I don't believe I'm overstepping. My movie, the emotional aspect of my movie is much stronger than yours. Your great emotional
I don't think so.
Your great emotional moment is when Buzz Lightyear realizes he's a toy. My great emotional moment is when my father reunites with the son that he thought was dead, and he rescues him.
I think there's also really big emotional on with the two Woody and Buzz coming together. Two guys who've been at odds. Like Woody admitting, like, you know what, maybe I'm not the best anymore. Maybe like it's time for Andy to get a new toy. Essentially, the idea of essentially another theme tackled in this movie is the theme of like being able to open your heart to new things, which I think was really great and really emotional, especially when you have Tom Hanks voicing your lead character. I think that's why
you want to talk
that
about
arc is so emotional. So
Ellen DeGeneres as Dory is the most iconic voice performance since Robin Williams saying "You ain't never had a friend in me."
Oh no, false. Yes, Tom Hanks had way more pop culture lexicon than
time there. We started with Chance, so we're gonna go back to you first for closing.
Okay. So Finding Nemo is a great movie, but I think when you're looking at the entire scope of Pixar, a lot of movies fall into the tropes of like Pixar, a lot of big Pixar tropes and a lot of like the Pixar formula. And I think Finding Nemo is a really great example of that. Not saying mine doesn't, but I think mine did originate that, and other movies took wrong cues from it, but mine did originate that, which I know doesn't make a lot of sense, but like, how do I explain this? Okay, like think about the event. Like, can I start my closing over? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay, cool. All right, starting from the record now. Whew. Okay, so Finding Nemo is a great movie. I can't dispute that, and I think the reason that it doesn't stand as Pixar's best movies because it doesn't have all that great writing. The characters aren't. I mean, you have like one layered character, but like you don't have characters that need like revisiting. You can get all you need to. Like one character has a fully developed cycle, but the rest of them are kind of just there for throwaway jokes. And as far as jokes, there are a lot of like I think when you look at it, you need to think about like what's going to hold up like in the future. I think there are a lot of pop culture references and a lot of like jokes they do make in that movie that in 20 years will probably not hold up. I'm not sure how much cash Fabio looking for his son Fabio is going to have in later down the line. And I think it tries to be broad. It claims it's broad, but feels really narrow. And Dory is kind of annoying. But I think Toy Story is the best Pixar movie by far because this absolutely changed the game and the way movies are made. Like nobody thought a movie like this could ever exist. It was, like I said earlier, it was the first animated movie to have a best screenplay nomination. That just shows you how smart and how great the writing is. It completely shattered expectations of it and put Pixar on the map that showed you like, hey, this is actually a legit animation studio. We can play with the big boys. We can play with just about anybody. And something you didn't touch is the fact that it's 20 years later, and this movie still holds up immensely, like mostly because of the writing and how fleshed out all these characters are. And you want to touch cast. You have Tom Hanks, who was one of the biggest stars in the 90s, doing a voice role. You have Tim Allen. You have Don Rickles. You have Wally Shawn, John Ratzenberger, Andy Potts. So many great, talented people doing these voices. You have a great story that could appeal to many generations. And yes, the animation on the humans can be dated at points, but I think the fact that it is, and the fact that people can still watch it, the channel still run that movie, and people still watch and love that movie to this day, just shows that it doesn't matter if like there are certain aspects that are dated as far as the filmmaking aspects of this movie. I think the story and the writing and the filmmaking makes this a standout picture on its own, and there's a reason why this is the best Pixar movie. And yeah, it's definitely Toy Story.
Alrighty, over to Isaac. Closing arguments.
Okay, you said I didn't touch on it, that your film holds up. I can touch on it now, I guess. It doesn't hold up as well for me, and I think the reason it doesn't is because as a kid, it's super cool to think and to dream about your toys coming to life when you're not in the room. Like that's cool. Even as a kid, before Toy Story, you always kind of wanted that. You always kind of were like hoping that they were kind of real. As an adult, like that doesn't have the same wonder to me. But as an adult, Finding Nemo, the thing that does hold up is being a kid now out on your own in a big scary world, and still having a parent that cares about you, and that still has an emotional resonance of the father letting go and having his kid have independence. At the end of the movie, letting him go off on his own. And the son realizing that his father isn't trying to control him, but is really does love him. That's something that holds up even as an adult. It's not cartoony. The animation is brilliant. It's much better than anything in Toy Story by far. You talked about characters that didn't have like arcs as side characters. I have Gil, Willem Dafoe's character in this movie is wonderful. All those little tank characters, Dory, Marlin, Nemo, they all have really good affecting character arcs. Your movie has two, maybe, Woody and Buzz. Like that's pretty much it. My movie has many iconic moments, way more quotable moments. You have the crabs, hey. You have the goals with mine. Like there's so many more things there. Everybody, my movie literally made everybody remember an address in Australia. P42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. Like that's still something that sticks in the consciousness of the world. You talked about the formula. Sure, you might have invented a formula. We improved on it. We made it better, and that's why Finding Nemo stands above Toy Story as the best Pixar movie.
Fact check. The address is P Sherman 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney.
Oh, you remembered it. That's interesting.
I do remember it. You didn't. You didn't.
All right. Where do I go here?
This is hard.
This is a tough one. These, contrary to what Chance might say about me, I actually do like Toy Story.
I know it's Toy Story you like. I know it's Toy Story 3 that you don't, which is why I take that thing.
Yeah, I would have been unbiased. I am unbiased as a judge.
Nice.
He didn't choose Lord of the Rings.
Bias will come out with Toy Story 3.
Let's see. Maybe. So, Chance talked about the Pixar formula and how Toy Story sort of invented it, and Nemo just kind of took the wrong things from it. Isaac kind of countered that, saying that it improved on it. Both your movies talking about the great characters, about how there's appeal to both a younger and older audience. Both of you talked about the themes as far as the emotional resonance. Y'all kind of said a lot of the same things. Both of you guys said that, my movie holds up and yours doesn't. That I had that written down on both sides.
Did I say it doesn't hold up? Whoops.
Yeah. Well, you said it might not hold up in 20 years.
Okay. That's what I said.
Let's see. Both of you guys said
because of the pop culture stuff.
Yeah. Both of you said that both of you said there might have been undeveloped side characters. Both of you said that your side developed characters were more developed. This is really difficult. Sorry, it's taking me so long. This might be the longest I've ever debated about a point. I think the way I'm gonna go here is I'm sorry.
We've seen you. Let's contemplate
this. Okay. I am going to give the point here based on the point that was made about the maturity of the emotional resonance. I'm going to give the point to Isaac. I think this was an argue. I have judged quite a few Battleground matches. This might have been the most difficult and the most torn I've ever been. But I think both of you guys made great arguments. I think Isaac talking about the maturity of the emotional resonance took it for me. So I'm going to give that second point to Isaac. Isaac is going to go up 2-1 and face Jeremy in the final round. Chance, you definitely still had a great show in today. You clearly still proved, even though you only got one, still proved why you absolutely deserve to be here fighting in contention in Movie Battleground. So great job to you. If you would just mute, we will come back for your plugs at the end.
All right.
Great job, Chance.
Yeah, good job.
All right. Now we get to the final question of the evening, gents. We have Isaac versus Jeremy in one final question. The winner is contending for that number one contendership spot for our championship. Let's see. Our final question this evening, guys, is going to be, what is the best Christian Bale movie? Jeremy, we're going to come to you first since you've had a little while to breathe. So we're going to you first, Jeremy.
All right. Well, Christian Bale, if you kind of go back to the 90s, he was an up-and-coming actor. He'd been a child actor. He'd had a few noticeable roles here and there, but it wasn't until the year 2000 when he really burst onto the scene with one of the most memorable characters that I can think of in recent memory. Just a fantastic role in a movie called American Psycho. Now, American Psycho was based on a book by Bret Easton Ellis, came out in the 80s. And this film was actually, I'm so sorry, guys, just a second. I'm messing up here. Just one of those days. Okay. All right. Okay, so American Psycho came out in the year 2000. It was based on the book by Bret Easton Ellis. And this was actually directed by a female director named Mary Herron. Now, the book, American Psycho, had kind of been criticized by being this over-the-top kind of idealized psychological drama about this Wall Street guy who has all these male fantasies. This character, of course, is Patrick Bateman. We all kind of know the name now, but, because of this character. But anyway, Patrick Bateman was in the book this Wall Street guy, this successful guy, this 80s guy, and he had all these violent fantasies. And there was a lot of really explicit detail on the murders that he was committing in the book. And, I think the book itself hasn't aged very well. There's kind of this male fantasy of murder and all of this stuff. And though, it was an interesting book, definitely a portrait of the 80s, I think it had a lot of criticism when we get to the year 2000. So you have a female director named Mary Herron who takes this material, and it's one of the few cases where you have kind of this pot boiler sort of thriller sort of material, kind of almost B-movie material, and a director takes another slant on it where she's almost kind of making a satire of the source material at the same time that she's adapting it. And this movie, American Psycho, does what the book doesn't. This is a takedown of the male persona, of the male chauvinist, corporate, I'm going to succeed. I'm going to be the man. I'm going to look great. I'm going to do everything great. It is a takedown of that persona, and it is so brilliant, and it only works because of the awesome performance of Christian Bale. He gets what the filmmaker's doing. He gets what the character is. From all the way through, he is this Wall Street guy who's so insecure. He's, almost has a mental breakdown over another guy who has better looking business cards than he has. He's all about his appearance. Every day he obsesses about himself in the mirror. He is a very shallow guy. It's all about, pop music, Genesis of the 80s, Phil Collins, Huey Lewis and the News, all of this very shallow stuff. And he's kind of, in a way, he's kind of a proto-nerd because he can tell you all of the details of this pop music, like every single little detail of the songs when they came out, the artists, all of this stuff, kind of like the nerds of the day that maybe can tell you a lot of stuff about stuff that maybe isn't that important. So there's that kind of interesting detail to his character. And Christian Bale, it's brilliant because this is a character who we end up eventually see murdering his rivals, murdering unsuspecting women, doing horrible things. And it's scary, like he's a terrifying character, but at the same time, he's pathetic. This guy is a joke. He's pathetic. He's sad. The movie gets that. The book didn't so much, but the movie gets it. That male power fantasy is so pathetic. It's about the most pathetic thing there is. And looking at it, it's even aged better now. The year that we just had, when we've learned all these stories about all these guys who had these power fantasies and flaunted themselves over women in disgusting ways. This movie shows that. This movie takes that down. This movie looks at that in a way that is so interesting. And yes, it's a thriller. Yes, it's a satire, but it's also really kind of in a way a powerful movie because this guy is so pathetic. He breaks down in the course of this movie, and there is ambiguity. We don't know. Is he really killing people? Or is this all kind of a weird fantasy in his head as he's spiraling out because he has no substance? He has no character. There's nothing to him. Is he just kind of psychologically living out these fantasies in his mind and not really doing any of it? We don't know. There is ambiguity at the end, and it is a powerful movie. It's a funny movie. It's an interesting movie, and it is all about Christian Bale. Any other movie with Christian Bale that you can point to, he was working with great directors. He had good material, but no other movie like American Psycho is all about his performance, all about him understanding that character, and all about him making this movie so much more than it could have been. This is the Christian Bale performance in the Christian Bale movie.
Alrighty, American Psycho for Jeremy. Isaac, when you are ready.
All right. Well, if the question was what's the best Christian Bale performance, I might just tap out right there after that impassioned speech. Very well done. But it's not. It's about the movie, and a great character does not a great movie make. My movie is the far superior movie, The Dark Knight. This is a movie that entered the American consciousness like no other movie ever did. It revolutionized the superhero genre. I can summarize the plot real quick, but everybody's seen this movie because it was so popular. The reason I'm not going to talk about the plot as Jeremy did is because my movie is more well-known because it's better. Like, it just is. Your movie is a fun cult movie. My movie entered the public consciousness like no other superhero movie had ever done or since. My movie changed the saying from the Empire Strikes Back of the trilogy to the Dark Knight of the trilogy. Like, it changed pop culture. It's the highest rated of Christian Bale's career on Rotten Tomatoes outside of the Henry V, which is a cameo appearance. it changed the Academy's rules. The Academy changed their rules because of the backlash, because it wasn't nominated for Best Picture. And the then president of the Academy actually referenced Dark Knight in the rule change to expand the Academy categories because everybody was so mad about it. President Barack Obama used the film as an allegory for the creation of ISIS of the mob versus the Joker, where the Joker is the devil we don't know, the same way as ISIS. He introduces this anarchy. Like, he used it officially as like this example. Like I said, there's nothing more iconic. You want to talk about performance? Jared Leto's Joker, much more iconic than Bale's Bateman. But as a movie, cinematically, my movie is much better. The cinematography, the acting all around the board, the locations it goes to, and the action in it, it's just a more cinematic movie. It's a more complete movie. You talked about the ambiguity in your movie, and I agree. The ambiguity in your movie hurts your movie. It doesn't help it. It makes it a worse movie because it refuses to take a side. My movie is this incredibly dark post 9/11 superhero movie that nobody had ever seen anything like it before. It examined themes of surveillance and power and anarchy in ways that nobody had ever thought of before. And like I said, it's a movie that entered the public consciousness like no other.
Alrighty.
Hold on, real quick. Jeremy, you just point against him. He said Jared Leto's Joker is more iconic than Christian Bale's Patrick Bateman. But do what you will.
I'm not gonna do that.
We knew what he meant.
I'd still take Ledger's Joker. No,
we all misspeak.
Kidding.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah, I know what you meant. I just wanted to point out the fact that you said that.
yeah, just a little slip. He meant to say he liked Leto's better.
It's great.
So,
great.
So great.
You guys are gonna have 5 minutes to duke it out whenever you're ready.
All right. First of all, American Psycho. When I was talking about the ambiguity of it, the movie does take a side. When you're saying the ambiguity hurts the movie, it does take a side. This guy is pathetic. He's disgusting. He's falling apart inside. That is what the movie is saying. The ambiguity. No. It does not glorify it at all.
He gets away with it all. That's why it falls apart. When you talked about
it does not fall apart because
it doesn't.
He is a disgusting, reprehensible character, and the reason he's likely getting away with stuff is because they're fantasies in his head. And at the end of the movie, this guy is just a shell of himself. They made the fantasies in his head.
He never intended it.
Even if he doesn't get away, even if he gets away with it at the end of the movie, he's going to get caught. If this is really happening, he's going to get caught eventually. The movie does not. No, the movie does not let him off the hook. And the ambiguity is what? No, it does not at all. This movie is a condemnation of this character from beginning to end. This never shows him in a heroic light. It always shows him in a negative, disgusting light. He's pathetic. We never liked this guy. He is. I mean, he's
the reason I watched the movie. He's hilarious.
Yeah, because he is a fun, awful. He's a fun, awful character that is interesting, much like the Joker in The Dark Knight, who is a horrible character that is fascinating to watch.
My character has a resolution that gets punishment for it.
Well, it doesn't matter. In my movie, he spirals out of control in his mind. He unravels, and that is the point. The point is this guy is unraveling in his mind. He's unraveling as a person. The outside, like the outside world, it doesn't even really exist for this guy, and that's what it's saying. There's no ambiguity about who he is. The ambiguity is whether it's in his head, whether it's not in his head, and that just makes the movie more resonant because we're locked into this guy's psyche. We don't have to get into a thriller plot about whether he's going to get hurt or not. We're locked into the psyche of this pathetic character, the pathetic decade that he came from, the pathetic ideals that people had in that decade, and the patheticness of the male ego that allows all of these men to do all these pathetic things in positions of power. This movie is all about that. It was made by a female director, and the movie has tremendous cinematography. I don't know why you would put the cinematography down. The way that it shows,
I didn't put it down. I said my movie had it better.
Well, it doesn't matter. Here's the thing with your movie. Your movie, it made a lot of money. It was a big hit because it had a great performance by Jared Leto. I did the same thing by Heath Ledger as the Joker. Heath Ledger as the Joker is one of these standout characters of all time, but the movie as itself is not as good of a movie as mine. My movie is a beginning, middle, and end. It's not too long. It tells the story and it gets out. Your movie, the third act of The Dark Knight, people have been talking about this for a long time. It falls apart. It tries to do too much. It tries to tell this whole Two-Face story about a character character we're not that invested in. It becomes his story at the end. The whole thing unravels. The thing that we really care about, the Joker, fades away into the background, and it's all about Two-Face, and that should have been in the third movie.
No,
the third movie was supposed to be the Two-Face movie.
No,
and
it wasn't.
It wasn't that.
Supposed to be the Joker.
No,
again.
it was supposed to be the
That's why
Two-Face movie, and
then why did they kill him?
Do it.
Of course they
No,
should.
the reason that they didn't do it because Nolan didn't think he was going to make a third movie, and then while they were making the movie, he decided he was going to make a third movie. So they decided that they were going to change it and wrap it up. But it's very tacked on. It's very rushed.
It's not.
And there's
The
a
whole
lot of
point of
stuff
the
in that
Joker,
movie that does not work.
It's literally the emotional crux of the movie when Batman says he took the best of us and wore us down. That's the whole point of Two-Face.
They could have done that way more elegantly. We don't need the fairy sequence. We don't need the fairy sequence. We don't need all the stuff with
the fairy sequence is one of the greatest sequences in that movie where he talks about, he says, the city just showed you
bogs
that
the movie
we take
down.
care of our,
the movie bogs down in that third act. It gets down on all these side trails. My movie is excellently executed. It is the right length. There's a beginning, middle, and end. Everything in my movie works, whereas yours is overlong, and you get away from what you care about in that movie. And again, I'm going to say best Christian Bale movie. Christian Bale barely factors into your movie at all. It is not about him. And I think that the best Christian Bale
it's still
movie,
about Bale.
If not
Batman
American Psycho, the best Christian Bale movie is Batman Begins, because Batman Begins is about Batman. It gets us into his psyche. It tells it tells you a much stronger story. It doesn't get off on side trails. It doesn't get distracted. It knows exactly the story that it's telling from beginning to end.
30 seconds.
Dark Knight gets totally off
why
course.
Your movie doesn't
There's stuff that doesn't pay off.
Is that
people love this movie because of Heath Ledger.
Half the people, the reason your movie doesn't work is half the people aren't sure whether he killed people or not. The director said that she intended it to always be clear that he did kill those people. If half your audience still doesn't know, then that means you failed as a director and the movie fails as a whole. My movie doesn't. There's no unclear interpretation of my movie.
She made the film
your ambiguity
to
hurts the movie.
It does not hurt the movie. It makes the movie, even whatever the director intended, the fact that there's an all force fed to you makes it more powerful.
I'm right there. Jeremy, you can continue where you left off for your closing.
All right. Okay. Whether or not there is the director and then there is the film. The film lives as its own thing. The director, she succeeded in telling a movie about this male power fantasy that was pathetic. She took all of the details from the book and twisted them so that it becomes pathetic and it becomes this awesome thing. Whether or not she wanted it to be literally clear at the end, whether or not he was committing the murders, it doesn't matter because we're locked into this character. The ambiguity that we eventually reach about whether or not he did it only helps the movie because we're like, this guy is pathetic. He's unraveled. If he committed these murders, he's going to get caught. If he didn't commit these murders, he's locked in his own head. That is interesting. That is unique. A rote plot about him getting caught at the end would just be the same thing that we saw over and over again. And your movie it tells a story about Batman and the Joker, and then it derails at the end. It tries to do way too much, and this is something that Christopher Nolan does again and again and again. He tries to fit so much into his movies. In Batman Begins, he had the right formula. He had the formula of let's tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end, set up our lead character, have specific villains that serve their purposes. In Dark Knight, he started getting ambitious. He started, let's fit in the whole Two-Face arc. Let's try to have other sequences with other characters we don't even know on ferries. Let's try to do all this other stuff. And then you could see that unravel even more in The Dark Knight Rises, where it's a mess. He's trying to do so much. American Psycho tells an insular story about a character, and it is Christian Bale's movie. It showcases him as an actor. It shows how brilliant he is. It introduced him to the world. It introduced him to the filmmakers that would cast him as Batman. And it has just as much excellent cinematography, just as the use of music in that movie, the use of pop music, everything that they do in that movie is so brilliant. And the ambiguity only helps it because we are left with this guy and what he represents. And the movie has so much more to say to us in the world today. Dark Knight, it tries to do a lot and is just basically a story about a psychopathic criminal who's messing up the city and trying to cause the hero to sully himself. And that's interesting in a comic book level, but my movie is about men and what men do and what men in power do to women, what they do to other people, and how they disrespect the people around them, and we need that message. And I think that message is so more resonant even now. It's a greater film. It's a more solid film. It's a tighter film, and it is a better showcase for Christian Bale.
All right, definitely an impassioned closing by Jeremy. Isaac, when you are ready.
So, that's a great idea in theory that your movie should have done that. It didn't. It doesn't condemn him. It's just there. It's there. It doesn't take a side. It really doesn't. It's just there on screen. The whole chainsaw scene, the whole porn scene, everything in that movie, every murder scene, by the end, it still hasn't taken a side. It's just like, this is the story of this character. It doesn't take a side. And the ambiguity, once again, hurts the movie because there is no clear vision. And I'm sorry, film is a result of the director's execution of their vision. If they had a vision, which she said, I wanted this to be clear that he committed these murders. If she had done that, I would like your movie more. She didn't. She failed. It was ambiguous, and it was unclear. It wasn't clear. My movie does not fall apart in the third act. That's the thing people fail to realize. There's a three-pronged battle that Joker's happening at the end of that movie. There's a physical one, between a fist fight between him. There's a psychological one with the fairy piers, and there's a philosophical one with Two-Face. He attacks him on all three fronts, and he even says, "You think I'd waste?" When he realizes his fairy plan had failed, and Batman's like, "Look, we just showed you that this city's full of good people ready to do good things," and he's like, "That wasn't the battle. My battle wasn't a fist fight with you. It wasn't the fairy piers. No, I took the best person in this city and broke him down, and that's Two-Face. And that is an emotional arc, and it's a powerful one." Aaron Eckhart's performance as Two-Face is a powerful one. My movie is a far superior movie, and you see it. It was listed again and again as one of the 100 greatest films of all time. I have a list here. I don't want to run down it for times, but it literally there's just list after list of top of all time. Your movie doesn't have that power. It doesn't. It's niche. It's interesting, and I agree the performance is spectacular. But as a movie, it doesn't say as much, it doesn't do it as well, and it's not as powerful. My movie still holds up. It still holds up. There's this weird backlash against it now because somehow every time something gets popular, there's a backlash against it, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You watch this movie, The Dark Knight, it still holds up. The ideas are still there. The performances are still there. As a movie, as a whole, it's not just about Leto's performance. It's about the themes that are explored. It's about the character arc that happens. It is about Batman and how he reacts to everything happening around him. This isn't about what performance is better, and it's not about what movie was Bale better in and what movie's focused on Bale's character more. It's about the movie as a whole, and as a whole, my movie succeeds where yours fails, and you see it in the box office, you see it in the legacy, and you see it in all the people who have this as one of the best films, not of the 21st century, not of Christian Bale, of all time.
Oh,
you said Leto again.
It's one of those lists, the IMDb top 250, because Interstellar is on that list.
Yeah,
and that movie is shit.
So is Toy Story 3.
Coming full circle.
All right.
We're gonna reach through this monitor and kick your ass, Robert.
We'll do it. We'll throw it out one day, Chance.
One day.
So let's see. All right. So this is a very interesting argument. Both of your movies obviously are good. Both of your movies obviously feature Bale in a good performance. Otherwise, you wouldn't have picked them, and you would have thrown away the argument. Both of you argued very, very passionately and very, very well. Both of you basically had the same one knock against the other person, which against Dark Knight is the third act falls apart and is overlong and derails, which is all basically, in the same pocket. And then the knock against American Psycho was it's ambiguous, the failed to execute the vision of the director, it's not as powerful, all those things. It doesn't take a side. So I think this one comes down to who countered that one biggest point the best. And I think the closing argument rebuttal actually by Isaac was really, really, really well done. As far as the three-pronged attack, there is an unneeded backlash against this movie because it's still emotional and powerful as an arc. Jeremy, I loved how much you focused on the performance of Christian Bale. If this was best Christian Bale performance, I easily think hands down it's probably American Psycho. But I think arguing for the movie as a whole, I think Isaac took this one.
All right, very fair.
Good
Congratulations,
round.
Isaac. You did
Thank
fantastic.
Thank you. I got redemption.
We had our rematch, and you did great. I'm proud of you, man.
Thank you.
I'll
say that in my closing.
Yeah. So with that, Isaac is gonna take this here. We're actually going to give a quick cut, and we're gonna have a very special guest come on and talk to our winner, Isaac.
All right, this is where the fun begins, guys. All right,
now beginning.
I'll go ahead and give a count in for editing. 3, 2. Hey guys, Aaron here for Movie Battleground, and I am here today. First off, I want to say congratulations to all 3 competitors. They did a great job in this fight. Congrats to Robert. I'm sure that was not easy to judge. It's a position I've been in many times, and a position I've taken shit for many times, so I know it's not easy to do something like this. But today I'm here. I'll talk to the other 2 just for a second, but today I'm here to speak mostly to Isaac. So going into this match, you guys were told that you were competing for a #1 contender shot. I kind of lied, just a little bit. Here's the thing, all right, and I'm going to do a break real fast so I can pull up the ranks. All right, cut back in for editing. Isaac, after winning this match, you currently have a record of 5-2 with 1 knockout. The title match will take place between Evan DeGraff, who has 3-1 with a knockout, and either Alex Warden or Greg Weinstein, who will enter that match at either 6-1 with a knockout or 5-1 with a knockout. After winning a match like today, and this same goes for all 3 competitors, no matter who would have won. After winning a match today, I think you have proven yourself worthy of the title shot. So I am offering you, if you want it, a 3rd seat in that title match.
Wow.
Against Evan DeGraff and the winner of Alex Warden and Greg Weinstein.
Interesting. Holy cow. I mean, like, it's ridiculous, but just for fun, what would happen if I turned it down?
You get a #1 contender shot.
Okay.
I mean, you can turn it down if you'd like, but I'm saying the offer is there for you to
I literally was just asking because I was curious, but of course I want that spot.
Okay. Well, then there you have it, guys. Obviously, the title match goes up later this week, but Isaac Horvat, by winning today's match, will be in that title match against either Alex Warden or Greg Weinstein and Evan DeGraff. Now, before I cut back to Robert to finish off the interviews with 3 competitors, I want to speak to the other 2. Obviously, Jeremy, your pending retirement was one of the things coming into this match. So again, I'll put the same offer out as you can have it if you'd like. But you 2 aren't walking away with anything either. Chance, obviously, you've had a bit of a rougher run. You leave today's match 4-4 with a knockout, but I think despite your many losses, you've proven that you're one of the best fighters we have. And Jeremy, leaving this match with a record of 4-3, again, a bit of a rougher record recently, but you've proven yourself as a great competitor and a great fighter in this league. I am offering, because, let me cut, and I'll do this, okay. After this tournament, we're entering a new season. And the thing is, our goal is to include as many new competitors as we possibly can to increase and give competitors who may have only had a match or 2 a shot at playing more. But because of that, that means the competitors that we have will not have enough game time experience to prove themselves worthy of that title shot. They're just not going to have the time because we want to do this on a rotational basis. So with that being said, the top current 5 or 6 contenders that we have now are going to be the same people that could be fighting for that title shot next time. So same as I offered Isaac a seat in the title match, Chance and Jeremy, I offer both of you a seat in the next #1 contenders match, which will be, if you choose to accept, both of you against the loser of Alex versus Greg. As you guys are, even despite, Chance's record being 4-4, that will technically knock him down towards the bottom of the top 10. You guys are, no doubt about it, the best fighters we have in this league. You are the most experienced fighters we have in this league, and it's only fair until we can get people to prove themselves with more experience. You guys deserve another chance at this. Now, I understand, obviously, Jeremy, you had your retirement pending, so obviously you can say no if you want to back out now, but I'll put the offer out to you before I step out. Do you guys want a chance at a number one contender shot?
I'll let Jeremy go
Speaking for myself, I felt like after my match with Alex, that wasn't a great performance on my part, and I wanted one more shot, to just really kind of show, my skill as a debater one more time, maybe get a title shot or a contender spot. And that's kind of why I was here today. And even though, it didn't go my way at the very end there, I feel like, getting those 2 wins at the beginning of the match, it was a great moment for me. And I feel like I kind of showed what I wanted to show. So I'm going to go ahead with my retirement plan, and I'm going to have to vacate that contenders role. And I think that you've got some other great players here still from this season. We've seen a lot of really great performances in this awesome season that you guys have had. And I'm going to go ahead and step aside and let these guys have that shot, including Chance, if he wants to do. I think is so fantastic. So, yeah, I think it's time for me to kind of focus on more things, if possible. In the next season, I would love to maybe get a chance to judge, because it's something I haven't done yet. And I would love to come in that, as a host and a judge, and come back in that capacity. I think that would be something great for me. But at this time, I just kind of want to go into the sunset, and I just feel like I've done great things in this league, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished, and I'm proud of everyone who I fought against, and Isaac, Alex, the 2 guys who beat me more recently. I'm so proud of them. And yeah, it's been awesome. So thank you, Aaron, and thanks, Robert. Thank everyone who've given me the opportunity to accomplish what I've accomplished.
All right, so then Chance, I guess we go to you.
This is hard. This is actually generally hard for me, but
basically and Matt, you can edit around this to make it shorter, to basically break down for you what the options are. If you say yes, you'll be matched up against whoever loses between Alex and Greg. And then since Jeremy's not playing, if we have somebody with a record that steps up, we'll put them in as a third person, or we'll just leave it at you two. It depends on where we're at that moment in time when we decide to play the match. If you say no, then you'll drop back into the regular rankings, and we'll try and get you a regular match as soon as possible. But it's basically up to you from there. Do you want to basically have the chance to fight for the title right away, or do you want to drop back in?
Look, I've been competing a lot in a lot of things over the past few months. It gets really tiresome, but I don't get tired. So hell yes, I want that spot. Put me in. I will take on anybody and everybody I have to. Yeah, I'm coming back. I'm coming into that match. I'll be in your number one contenders match, and I will be the number one contender. So yeah, I'm in.
All right. So before I throw it back over to Robert to let these guys have their final thoughts on today's match and the future, the major changes and announcements from this video: Isaac will have his title shot, Chance will have his number one contender shot, and Jeremy rides off into the sunset until he comes back to judge Aaron versus Evan, the hate match. Guys, this has been Aaron Knoll from Movie Battleground. Thank you for having me in this video. Robert, back to you.
All right, well, what an announcement we just heard from Aaron. That is going to be some incredible stuff happening through the rankings and through the championship contention. Of course, let's go to really quick plugs. We'll start with Chance. Where can we find you on the interwebs if you wish to be found?
Find me all over a bunch of stuff like here, Toby Trivia, anything to a world movie game, including my channel, Full Metal Media, where I host trivia, write trivia, and host my top 5 show, Full Metal 5, weekly. You can also find me at Twitter and Instagram at ChanceWars_91. Stardust and Letterboxd at ChanceT83. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Chance the Critic. And new announcement, guys. New plug. I just started a podcast with my Derby Trivia team partner. It's called Notorious by Chance. Go subscribe to that. We just dropped as of recording this, we just dropped our first episode. And I think we'll be a few episodes in by the time this is posted. But yes, go subscribe to our new podcast, Notorious by Chance.
Sweet. Y'all should definitely do that. Go support Chance. Jeremy, will come to you next. Where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Jeremy Paul Adams on YouTube, Jeremy and Paul Adams on Facebook. And then I also, with Chance, run Full Metal Media. I'm one of the admins there, so you can check out all our content, the trivia matches that we do, as well as the talk show type material. I am also an admin and head question writer at Worldwide Movie Games, so check out all the trivia matches we're doing there. And I just want to plug recently the Schmodown Rundown event that was done, the Rundown Schmodown, I guess you would say. It was a match that was kind of on the SK Plus channel that kind of promoted the Schmodown Rundown fan podcast for the actual movie trivia Schmodown, which you might know on YouTube. They did like a trivia match, and I wrote the questions for that. And William Bibiani, who's kind of a well-known critic as well as a competitor in the movie trivia Schmodown, hosted that, and it was awesome. So everybody check that out on SK Plus.
For sure. And our winner today, and I guess now championship contender, Isaac. What about you?
You can find me on Twitter at Filmer2013 or YouTube at Isaac Horvat. Do a lot of gaming and all that stuff. I want to say real quick, it was nice to meet you, Chance. Nice to play you. You did great. And Jeremy, it's been an honor. Good luck on everything future. Our first match is one of my favorite matches I've ever been in. I hold you up as my favorite competitor that I've ever played.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's been real. I love playing with you.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, and Jeremy is not dying, of course. We will see him in some aspects.
Well, actually, now that you mention it.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
It's a first. The ratings.
So, of course, yeah, it's absolutely send your love to Jeremy, one of our best.
For the ratings.
Yeah, for those views, let's get those views. So of course, send love to all these three competitors. As for Movie Battleground, me personally, you can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at RBRTPRKR98. That's my first and last name, no vowels, plus a year. And then of course, please follow all Movie Battleground. You can join the Movie Battleground Facebook page, as well as the Worldwide Movie Games Facebook page, which is the umbrella channel that nests Full Metal Media, Movie Battleground, and of course there will be trivia. Make sure you join the respective Facebook pages and follow Worldwide Movie Games and Movie Battleground on all of the other social medias. Of course, like, comment, and subscribe. Do all the stuff you're supposed to do at the end of these YouTube videos. And we will see you next time on the Movie Battleground. Thanks for watching.